Welcome back to ALGS.
The Split 1 playoffs have begun.
It's time. The best crowd in esports. Make some noise. And honey, and we get ready for game number 1.
Look at the bodies. It's a graveyard down here.
Can he get the double? Yes, he does. Furholm going for the triple kill to kick off the ALGS playoffs in London.
He's going to be hitting some big
Oh
shots.
my goodness, the damage.
The Bravers are finally landing.
Guard is going to win this game.
Ascend will pick up the win.
Oh, he's like, he punches him.
Are you kidding me?
He's on main. It should work out. Ligaboo. Oh, it's going with the Kraber. He's going to go in and finish off the damage as well.
Setting a world record.
23 kills. $1 million is on the line today. It is a shootout. I'm going to move forward to become the champions here in London.
You want the money?
You get the damage here. TSM up in the skies. House goes down with the hands. London belongs to TSM.
Welcome back, everyone. It's the Apex Legends Global Series Year 4, and after such a hype video, it gets me super excited to know that we are almost into that regular season, Zephyr. But before we get there, we've got to find some more teams to send to the Pro League. How you feeling today?
Good, we're not quite done yet. We've at least found 2, but there are still technically 6 remaining spots. 75% of our teams have not found themselves the happy home that we like to call Pro League yet.
Exactly. There's so many teams and so many opportunities for those teams, whether they want to secure that auto-ticketed spot by winning out that top spot in the finals, or will they advance via the points? Let's go ahead and jump into a Year 4 overview. If you're new and you're just tuning into your first preseason qualifier, well, this will kind of lay the land of Year 4 as a whole. And if you look all the way to the left, that diamond over there, the preseason qualifiers that have been going from November to December 2023. And we are just on the cusp of the Split 1 Pro League kicking things off in January. But, you know, let's go ahead and talk. Hey, you just tuned into the stream for the first time. You're like, what are these preseason qualifiers? What is Apex? I don't know. Zephyr can lead you the way. He will definitely tell you what's happening today.
I'll tell you what, if you haven't been part of preseason before, it hasn't changed. It's still the same here. You're showing up to a standard 6-game series where teams will compete through a series of eliminations and placement to rack up the points necessary to put them on the board. If you find yourself in the position of first, you'll be on your way to Pro League. The rest of the teams, though, will still be accumulating those preseason qualifier points, which will send at least 4 of our teams alongside them as well.
Exactly. And let's go ahead and look at the points overview for our game series today. Now, notably, the preseason qualifier points that our 4 teams will advance on after our 4 preseason qualifiers are completely different than the points that you're looking at on the screen. This is just for the map series today, and it looks very similar to what you should have seen before. 12 placement points will get you that first place, and it'll be scaled all the way down, with 15th place getting 1 point, 16th and through 20th, 0 points. But the coveted points per elimination will be 1, and a lot of our teams just frag out through the lobbies and have found a lot of success accumulating points that way. Zephyr, I prefer the aggressive nature and the points from eliminations a little bit more to placement.
I don't.
I know.
There ain't a bone in my body that says that's safe, but you are
It's
correct.
not.
There are plenty of teams who have done it before, and you know what? When it comes to the preseason qualifiers where you're proven you're better than the rest, there's no better way than wiping the floor with your opponents.
Okay, well, I like that aggressive nature coming out of Zephyr, let me tell you that much. But for our teams and how they're going to be acquiring their points, let's go ahead and look at our map schedule for the day. Today for Emea this morning, we will be kicking things off on Storm Point, the first 3 maps on Storm Point. Then we'll hop on over to the tried and true World's Edge, which honestly have run pretty smoothly. If you remember correctly, Zephyr, we got so many geyser zones last week on World's Edge. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, I mean, coming through here, I mean, a challenge to be had, but nothing unfamiliar for these teams as they'll be continuing to make their way through what is all but the same here. So if you haven't had your practice in the first 2 weeks, I'm sorry, there's no hope for you. You've got to seal the deal now.
There's no hope for you. You heard it here from Zephyr. But we talked about the teams. Let's go ahead and pull up the match day group so we can see which 20 teams have made it to the finals here for week 3. And things were notably going to be different, right? We're missing a couple teams. I would say 40% worse. LVH, 202, stay healthy. Some heavy hitters when encompassing a lot of those points, right? 202 has the most points so far. Stay healthy right behind them. LVH in the top 3. But I mean, that's just who's missing today, Zephyr.
Exactly. And these are teams that have put up the points but don't have those wins alongside them. So we're looking at them to hopefully continue that hot streak if they want to be working their way in alongside our qualifying point system. Still though, 7 notable faces have made their way back from the first and second preseason qualifier, notably players, the boys, Red Dragon, Need More Bullets, Bakalhal, 3 Dragons, and Rats. Once again, surprisingly coming in there at the very end.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be really important, right? I believe Need More Bullets. With so many heavy hitters and like at the top of the points leaderboard, this could be such a solid showing for them to really make up that points disparity that they need to in order to secure one of the spots via points. Now, granted, they could come out and win the whole thing today, and that would solidify their positioning in Pro League ever more. But for now, you have to start thinking about those teams that are missing and who can fill that. You kind of notably also talked about Red Dragon, 3 Dragons, a lot of dragons here. I feel like I'm in Game of Thrones, but they could really make a play for the points.
And on top of that, we do have some new faces that we'll be talking about later today. And I don't say new in the sense of, well, they're new to Apex, but definitely new to our qualifiers. But we're already jumping into the action, as y'all can see here, and you'll be able to check out some of those familiar names well in before Zephyr and I. That's not quite right, but I'll tell you what.
Zephyr and I? Are you referring to me as the second Zephyr?
No, I suppose there's 2 of me here on this broadcast.
Yes, 100%.
Sure,
Well, at least you know for a fact I do not see a team named Zephyr's E-Kittens today. So the fact that I don't have to call to that every, couple of minutes is actually a little joyous.
I'll tell you what, there's no Zephyr's E-Kittens, but I saw big men, 3 big men, notably, who are now, of course, 1 big man, 2 big man, and 3 big men, which is going to be as chaotic as it gets. I wish, I mean, I think it's silly, I think it's fun, but man, oh, it's confusing.
Look, as long as it's fun, I couldn't imagine anything more. But we are getting into that dropship. We have match 1 underway, Storm Point on the horizon. Now, start thinking about kind of some things that might happen here, right? I did see some drop spots as I was perusing Twitter, so I don't necessarily know how accurate it is, but thank you so much, Alex, for posting these. A lot of our teams are going to be claiming multiple POIs if they can even manage to do that. And I'm looking at Red Dragon trying to take the whole thing of North Pad and the 3 pineapples to the right, encompassing the IMC Armory, your favorite hot dog buildings. Like the fact that they can just say, I want the entirety of the northwestern side, let them have it.
Well, I mean, we don't know as it stands if that will continue to exist, or will the challenges themselves present here. We'll hop on early, though, with our friends from Red Dragon. Surprisingly, even though they have participated in the last 2 preseason qualifiers, currently not at the highest in terms of that average overall point standing, in 3rd, right behind the boys and players, who have put up a much better representation in these last 2 weeks.
Look, if you gotta have to do it, it has to be now. We are over halfway through the preseason qualifiers. If after today there will only be 1 more chance to rack up your points and rack up that auto ticket, but it seems as if Red Dragon was able to separate out here through North Pad, grab the Trident, and be able to have all of that. Could see some action over in potential Cenote Cave for a contest. We didn't get enough contests in North America and Cenote, so we want to have more in Emea, and it's going to be Rats sitting on 2 blue, 1 white, who have already revved up their rampage, ready to get into action. I
mean, looking at a easy advantage here when you're playing around that Revenant Conduit combo that has come true here within this recent season. The ability to take 3v3s with that extra 150 health can be detrimental. Sorbin's got to be careful there. I know not part of that composition, still has to be staying healthy and well to keep that numbers advantage up.
Definitely need to, and with Oki here on the roof, an alternator to boot, able to grab one knock initially to turn the tide in the favor of Rats because they've already got another shield crack, but Sorbin up in the face of that enemy needs to just go ahead and grab them. They do. We're just looking for the final member, and Rats should relatively have an easy contest here.
Starting off successfully, it'll be just Reaper who finds their way out over towards the remnants of our INC armory. We'll have to check in later and see if they get that full recovery or if it is the success and start of Rat's claim to flame here. Now, on the opposite side of the map towards our northern end, the McDudes trying to make good on the name, but it's going to be Septic showing up for the very first time here, punished quickly, and now Pantheon drop, McDudes eliminated in 20th.
Pretty interesting considering McDudes do land up here at Zeus Station, and with Septic rotating out from Command Center to eliminate McDudes at their drop POI, that kind of lays the grounds for a little bit of aggression that Septic's looking to start early, right? We were talking about the chaos that ensues when you go to prioritize early fighting, early KP, as we look to where they'll have to rotate, because when you take that northern area of Zeus, well, now you've got to go all the way south, Zephyr.
Well, at least I'll say this. Zeus Station is valued for its ability to find that kind of, we'll say, lengthy rotate a bit easier than some teams, say players over at the wall, given the extra additional height that comes alongside it and the proximity of some of those balloons if you can make your way over that, or the evacs if you have those as well. Sadly, though, it is still slower than the remnants in the rest of these lobbies here. So many of our teams have made quick rotations and are already finding themselves a happy home.
It'll be really nice, right? I kind of want another ending in Echo. It can be really fun to see. I've had them in North America recently that I've gotten a cast over, and it was so wild to see where everyone was making their plays. We even had like a rogue trident play jump off the top and hit to the roof, and it just made for a little bit of chaos. So a lot of our teams are going to be setting up here early, especially three big men making their rotation in. You can see just all of the skirmishing happening. Big man number 3, though, little crazy Watson might be running into some trouble.
Well, you'll have to rely on big man 1 to potentially rest your laurels here. For the 3 big men, they're looking like 2, and at that point, I won't even be able to call them men anymore. Still, though, have found their way over to the side wall here. We'll be able to take the time to get things at least back into a point of respite, but problems. They don't have any control over towards that northern side, and once we start to see a lot of these teams rotating in for coverage over towards that high ground, I mean, you're in terrible angles.
Yeah, and even where the 3 big men are kind of positioned right here, I'm not necessarily a favor of it, and now we need to go recover the big man number 2, which, look, if you're going to call yourselves the 3 big men, can I just go ahead and say this about the game? We need the Meat Mountain. Position.
Yes.
Like, why? At least just give it to us once.
We'll see. I mean, there's plenty of time on the board, but if we're going into game 6 and they're in 20th place and you don't drop Meat Mountain, that's a problem in itself. Speaking of problems resolved, though, Myth have actually made the recovery. They find their way back up over towards being to get the full force back in play here. Now, granted, it is still a huge delay on these major rotations. Being more than one is one of the best you can hope for.
Love the 3 dragons here trying to come in through the sky. We still only have 1 team out of the lobby, and that would be McDudes thus far, but with all of the ultimates rolling in, 3 dragons trying to stabilize post-rotation. So far, so good. I don't necessarily love the position, but the fact that they were able to make it in safely will be enough. You have a team on the right, just a dark veil and kind of hiding and trying to stay out of line of sight. Big man number 3 trying to become one with the trees.
Hey, it's a playable spot. It's one that's well known, though. I think teams have gotten very accustomed to the tree plays there, and as a result, you'll see big men drop, but not before Cirque will take advantage of that small peek from the 3 dragons. Usually going to be playing hard defense on this Catalyst as they stick that revive there, but with that Rolling Thunder and further damage to peek around the side, big men will thrust themselves upon this excursion here, dropping 2. Juicy to try to see if they can survive, but this is what I'm talking about with this specific area. Failure of the angles to understand and failure of survival to be at the hands of the dragons.
Yeah, it's another reason why I wasn't a whole lot convinced about the positioning that 3 dragons were able to take, and as soon as the Dark Veil went down for Gem, they just capitalized on the teams in front of them. Big Men was just the first, and they set their sights on the Dragons, but now the Gem need to stabilize here and make sure that they're clearing out their back, because they can hold a lot of space here. A lot of teams are going to be looking to rotate in through that devastated coast side and even vying for these positions here. Hectic, you know, if they could just clear this out, it wouldn't be too bad for them. They've already got a knock.
Already with that major advantage there, but it seems turning the tides over towards the height here to potentially play for a longer staying position. It seems like they've already made major claim to this area alongside Atnam. Welcome to the team, by the way, as they will set up for the late game. Meanwhile, Drain Gang making names for themselves for the very first time under this new team name. Will set themselves up. Ezzy with a revive, a drop on the cruising spikes, and once more up the zip line. A quick beam from Limek says, players home.
That's a big deal, right, Zephyr? Because we came into this broadcast only in map 1 looking directly at players with so many people out of the finals lobby for week 3. It opened the door, and players, you know, they could have really locked up Pro League should they maybe take a top 5, a top 3 in the week 3.
And this is the thing, if you weren't here with us last week, players came through previously just behind the likes of Passion. They were oh so close going into the very final game competing for that Pro League spot. So if there's anyone who provides that potential warning, that potential Pro League gusto, it is in fact the players. Red Dragon, though they are a similar team with also same the success and also same the performance in previous PSQs, but they've got distance to cover. I know they like playing edge. I know they like getting competitive and feisty, but this might be a tall glass of water to drink.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we saw Red Dragon, right, they were over at North Pad just kind of getting their loot in their drop spot. Well, they've already made it kind of about halfway on that rotation south towards Echo and through Pylon. But if you're going to run into any teams that are making late rotations, think of Myth Esports, who kind of rotated out to take down McDudes. Zeptic could be also in the play of things. Rats kind of just trying to make their way in on the outer skirts of this as well, which very viable as we navigate through spiders. We could easily run into a team and it would be an open engagement with the utilization of so many 30-30s. Rats Mania, you're going to have to throw a good chunk of damage, but the Radiant transfer does not come through before Tolkien's able to fall.
Bit of a shame there, and this is what we talk about in terms of the issues of sending yourself early out. Synetic will secure that final pickup onto Tolkien, and now the Rats forced to claim themselves upon as 2, but the round 2 ring already closing in here. The kind of rotation that they have to set themselves up for is not one that comes with ease. Still though, we have to turn our tails immediately. The boys, one of our more aforementioned teams, have shown up and are providing some pressure over to the side. Make note though, the eastern edge of this circle is finding damage from afar.
And with an amped up Sentinel, that's going to be a surefire way if you can connect those shots to get damage from afar. But the boys currently sitting in 5th place on that cumulative leaderboard throughout the preseason qualifiers would really like to put in a solid week. He does take a good chunk of damage, and we're just waiting for Babylons to boost that 127 damage number. We need damage from afar, as Zephyr said.
Come on, put up the Sentinel, put up the fight here. The boys, it's not a team that ever tends to slow down, always on the heel of one another, and we'll see that charge up once again from Babylon. Hopefully this time around, the shots to follow through as well. Granted, still setting up for that further rotation. They have a nice position into that round 4 in further as this ring closes in, and if they're the only team that is working their way out from the west, this can be a huge advantage for that end game when you play on top of something like that Gravity Lift, which has that extra bit of height.
It's definitely going to be really preferential, but Made in Heaven out in the zone trying to take an engagement. You'd think they would have the hands in that 1v1 right there, but unfortunately for him, Mania is going to get the best, but still Made in Heaven working to gatekeep Rats to the fullest potential. And honestly, this is just going to chalk up to being kind of a loss for both of them, with Made in Heaven electing to choose. We want these KP as opposed to getting in the ring, and hey, if we can get this res on a Synetic, that's great. You've already burned a Dark Veil throughout this as well, and wow, with just a small inch of time.
Surprisingly, Rats are actually up as full 3. At some point, they managed to get the entire revive on what was Tolkien there. Sadly, though, for Tolkien, the crew will be left as a duo no matter what. Takes to the Trident, going for the full rotation that arguably just had to come through a whole lot sooner last time around.
going to sacrifice himself. No, that's essentially what Sorbin's doing, and everyone's running in the Trident, just trying to hit a negative rotation to maybe come in through Pylon side. Hopefully that works out for them, because when you cut on over to Pylon, you have Red Dragon kind of in that center spire trying to make sure that they're keeping a line of sight on whatever is happening. Myth Esports still nearby them, and they're already keeping an eye on where Made in Heaven and even Septic has rotated around.
And they've got worries ahead, especially with the boys there now fighting just in front of them. It will be Zodiac, though, that finds this first knock in response against Forbidden. Pick up one from afar. It's bizarre. This is what I talked about with that Eastern power play of all these shots ringing in from that high advantage height from the east. It will leave boys down to just one, but finally with Zodiac picking up that last KP, they will be eliminated out in 16th. For Forbidden, though, they've got to find a way to rotate in.
I think this season that we are experiencing right now, and with all of our players that are inside the top 5 in points falling early, Red Dragon, these are going to open the door for you if we can just kick things off with a strong game 1. But we've got to navigate through the pylon, and with Prestige already down, can Geo here get that res? You can just see, I mean, we see it from the spectator client, all of the people rotating through Pylon, able to get them back up, but now we just need to get into cover before this can happen. But Geo says, I've got you, I'm suppressing with the 30-30, I'm able to get one knock, now we just have to find the rest.
Go there with that 30-30, showing why this is a dangerous weapon to behold in the current meta here. You put damage down from range and you absolutely blister teams that decide to show up. Now from above with the hands upon the car, finding the cracks will send Myth home from below.
Job's not done just yet. We're still getting peppered from afar with incoming frag grenades. So Red Dragon, this could be an opportunity for them to go ahead and heal back up on shields and set their sights to more KP. They like to take these approaches where they just take the team down from all different sides. And sure, Rats was a duo at that point in time, but it's still another one down.
I'll tell you what, for a team that's running Revenant with no additional support class like that Conduit, I mean, it's a pretty... I was going to say a word and I cannot say that.
Ambitious?
It's a pretty ambitious play to kind of put your faith directly into a fragger like that. For Red Dragon, it's working out for now, and especially with Made in Heaven on that rotate with evac, they're allowed to perform for this height. If they take out Forbidden and contest against rolling teams, they might be in that dominant high ground position I was discussing earlier.
This is very similar to kind of how we had witnessed, I believe it might have been Passion that actually took the Echo win the last time we were casting over this, because they were able to just take so much space on that back end. Now, with this setup looking a little bit different in how our teams are playing it, I don't think any team in particular has able to acquire as much space as we've seen in prior zones, so it could be a little more hectic considering there are 12 squads left in the lobby, and Red Dragon now hitting the rotation to just vie for a spot here in Echo. We know need more bullets is around here. I did see some rampart walls going up, so it might be a little wild here.
Hey, I'll tell you what, Red Dragon have still flown their way into their roost for now. We'll see if they can claim the horde that is their KP. For Forbidden Gaming, they'll have to take this fight all but the same here. Great damage down, though, already in hand. A bat is stuck as Zodiac looks to eclipse the very edge of the smoke here, taking advantage of that hunt. Will not find the knocks, but still finds the advantage as they send rolling teams home, but are quickly picked up in tow.
Yeah, I mean, the frag grenade that came in from Danny there just was able to be the final nail in the coffin. And you can see Lynxers and Tryhard Thor here. They do have the rampart walls kind of on the side of things, which would give them that damage boost kind of shooting through them. But nonetheless, G-Dolphin looking to find themselves either at the top with an auto qual spot here today or solidified in points throughout the weeks. But they are only going to be able to play this high ground at least into the next ring, which should really give them that height advantage that would be needed.
I'll tell you what, it's something that should give them advantage, but when we talk about that further pull, it can come back to bite them if they're forced to give up this position early and contest against a lot of those teams that rest below them, contesting the very same building here. So if you're G-Dolphin and crew, you are only hoping and praying for the best of RNG there, and if you don't have it, you got to come up with something soon.
I mean, you're not wrong about talking with the people that are like all below them. There are a cumulative 5 teams below this triangle building. You've got Gem, you've got Red Dragon, Need More Bullets on the roof, Drain Gang, and Hectic. It looks like it could potentially be a lone solo or duo from Hectic, just vibing on the outside. But how will Drain Gang approach this with Gem on the other side? They were looking for potentially at least 100 damage or could maybe get a knock on the opening. Instead, they lose 7 full.
Hey, props out to Need More Bullets there. Tryhard Thor keeping advantage towards that height, clearing out any kind of space rotation that could come to bite them, especially against Drain Gang here, dropping out that horizon. That subtracts a gravity lift from the equation, a potential height usurper here. But for them, they still got to worry about the rest of their covenant.
Oh, and when you are forced to throw out the Rolling Thunder, and that is not your Dark Veil, but it doesn't matter. Tryhard Thor was able to pick up some massive damage and KP. Septic being eliminated, and Need More Bullets just need to set their sights on forward. And as some teams are trying to navigate the fence lines, well, G-Dolphin is being a nuisance with that 30-30.
It's the perfect angle here, but we'll have to see how it pays off in the end. Drain Gang and crew have rotated forward here, and we do have a very slight advantage over to our friends from Deathwish, still playing that height on that western side. Granted, to convert to find themselves a potential place above Postman Tricks here will be another question to be had.
Gem out here, able to find some KP and take out another team as well. Down to 8 squads, but it's not going to be a full lobby. Looks like we're missing about 5 players from that, but with the Gem on the low ground, I don't hate this. We just need to really keep an eye on Need More Bullets, because should they decide to drop down the center spire of the triangle and come from behind, that would be really unfortunate for them. And then you also have to think about Red Dragon, who's just above you.
I feel like kind of playing for time here is your best efforts, but truthfully, Red Dragon are already looking to pressure this fight out earlier and clear the space that they know they have minor advantage to take with, which, to be honest, I'm surprised Postman Tricks on that opposite side is allowing them to have this much space in their exchange, and you can only address that by Need More Bullets on top. The minute that Postman Trick steps out, they're immediately peppered back, and as a result, that's allowing Red Dragon to actually get a little bit more feisty and go for pushes like this.
Well, we're gonna push straight forward. We're gonna lose Prestige on the go, but Made in Heaven and Drain Gang will fall in the meantime. And if you think about this, Need More Bullets will eventually jump down from the high ground with Red Dragon pushing out so far north. It kind of opened the door for Need More Bullets to take down Gem.
It's the perfect opportunity here for Need More Bullets to come down, but Red Dragon knows that. And the best thing is they've made them go for a fight against each other, which secures them the opportunity to reset here. There you can see on the other side, Need More Bullets are Rampart in tow with the Sheila out. Will finally be eclipsed here by Plushka, as they will then now work their way underneath Postman and Tricks here to survive for hopefully moments more, as here comes the push.
Oh, and 5 squads remaining, doing a good chunk of damage, but the Radiant transfer does come through, and Plushka with literal 2 HP just needs to find some connections and had already used that for a shield swap, and Red Dragon will fall. Gem, they have survived the push from Need More Bullets. Now Red Dragon trying to hit a quick res, but we turn our tides to Postrix, who's got the upper hand. They have a pylon out. They're trying to make that. Actually, it's Deathwish's pylon. They forced Red Tricks inside the building and are getting fenced off.
This was a great rotation caught in the midst of all that action. It was Deathwish over on that western side who make an early rotation out to play for this position. Great from Post, Tricks, and Kill, but now the full drop onto the 3v3 here with what will be Gem from below. A chaotic endgame, what might become a heal-off in its last moments. All taking to the grab lift, all praying for their survival from the skies as there is no zone left.
Gem is eliminated, and though Postman Tricks was locked inside the building, they withstood the storm, and they will take your map 1.
For a team with heavy Pro League precedent, this is a massive first win for their first appearance here in the preseason qualifiers. I barely have to tell the folks at home, but friends from post-kill on that previous Ascend roster with Kashera here, alongside MG Clutch and Trix, who were early on in Pro League, alongside Corpa, that previously qualifying preseason qualifier team from year 3. If there's anyone who can come through, make a statement on their first play today, it's these guys.
Oh, 100%. I'm pretty sure that I stood in line to get Postkill's autograph because he was one of my favorite Watson players. So to see him finding a bunch of success on Catalyst makes me really happy as well, and especially here in the preseason qualifier week 3. But let's go ahead and pull up those standings and see just how they did in map number 1 on Stormpoint. And I mean, 17 points. That's still really good. That's the 12 points from placement and 5 eliminations. But Deathwish, who was able to run the space above Postman Tricks, obviously not bad. The 15th and then even a 14 out of Red Dragon.
I mean, we can see right here, this is as stacked as it gets, and it's a difference between a lot of that heavy placement that we do see from teams like Deathwish and Postman, and then in the comparison, the heavy KP-ridden Red Dragon need more bullets, and even a small headway to Gem over there on the side. As a result, we don't have a heavy-weighted, top-ended lobby. Instead, it is going to be extremely tight as we work our way into our second and third games of Stormpoint.
Well, I guess I could only wait, because if we are going to start things off this incredibly close, we are shaping up for an action-packed week 3 ALGS preseason qualifiers over here in Emea. So go grab some water, go grab a drink, go grab whatever you need to be able to prep for map number 2, because it's ready when we come back from a quick break. Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series preseason qualifier. We've got week 3 finals underway. I'm Spider Tiff. That's your neighborhood Emea know-it-all Zephyr, and we are here to bring you all the action. Look at him. He's like, what is happening here? Like,
I was like, I guess I'm the neighborhood something. I was hoping for Spider-Man, but I got
You could be.
EMEA
Do you
knowledge.
want to be?
I get compared to Peter Parker occasionally, and it makes me a little happy.
Oh, I love that for you. Zephyr, aka Peter Parker, aka Resident Evil. And I almost called you Resident Evil too. What is happening? Well, anyways.
That would be cool. I like that too. Okay, either way, let's jump into the standings real quick.
Yeah,
Check out where
let's
we
do
are
it.
before we get into Stormpoint. once again here, and plenty of teams making a name for themselves. That's the big thing that I want to point out here before we get into the next series. Gem, Deathwish, Postmatrix, and even a small claim over to Drain Gang. They are all new faces here in our third preseason qualifier.
And that's going to be really important, right? If you're coming in after 2 preseason qualifiers have already been done and dusted, you are hedging your bets that you are taking home that top spot today, because it's going to be really tough to make a play on the points leaderboard as they stand. And I say tough, but Need More Bullets, Red Dragon, all the dragons, they can make a really good standing today, and they will be able to take it down. Because as it stands right now, there's 4 teams that can advance on from the preseason qualifier points, and Players is in that 4th spot with 2,700 points. However, 202 Stay Healthy and LVH, they're not in the lobby.
This is a potential week for those teams, especially who are kind of maybe even hedging their bets on those qualifying points to catch up. I still will say this is probably one of our most competitive preseason qualifiers of all time. The fact that we're entering into the 3rd preseason qualifier and there are still 7 teams, almost nigh half of the lobby, that have shown up to all of these finals is insane.
It is insane, but for the teams that are looking to find themselves into Pro League that don't have points, well, Postman Tricks, we need a little bit more of what we saw on map number 1. Clearly the macro is on point, your ability to withstand Deathwish kind of boxing you in with the Watts and fences, and honestly, that was pretty impressive. So as we get underway, we get ready for map number 2 for McDudes, who went out early in Zeus Station. Let's kind of be a little more aware, because Myth Esports will likely look to make a play for them if they felt very confident in that early game engagement.
We'll see if they can manage to continue their train of success there, especially after surviving the remnants of rats and making their way to that end game. But still, a lot of appropriate natures need to change here between the players, the boys, rats, 3 dragons, all these faces who are maybe not in the best of positions thus far. I will say, though, I'd love to discuss some of these friendly faces that we haven't had the opportunity to talk story about here. Deathwish is one of those teams. I know it's very easy to jump on post-kill or potentially GDolph and discuss a lot of that previous Pro League success here, but even Deathwish between Danny and Shades, both previous iterations of rosters that had existed in Pro League, notably Shades, a part of those Odin gamers way back during year 2, showing up back when we at least had those 40-team rosters qualifying, and actually well within the top 20 here. So it's been a hot minute since we've seen performance from a man like that, and hopefully this is the potential opportunity for return.
It could be. I mean, Danny was definitely finding some good chunks of damage with frags, when just finding all of the spaces to allow Deathwish to really capitalize on. So for teams like that, that's not a bad start, right? But when I look at the standings, I look at the leaderboard, I look at 2 names in particular, Maiden Heaven and Rats, right? Remember when they were kind of rotating in through Spiders, and Maiden Heaven essentially was the team gatekeeping Rats, who was able to make it towards the end with a duo. But those 2 teams to I wouldn't say necessarily waste a lot of time on that engagement, but it took up a large chunk when Maiden Heaven could have made their way over to Echo and found a good position there. The points 6 for Maiden Heaven and Rats 3, you can see where the holdup was. That engagement over at Spiders kind of didn't really allow them much space.
No, and as a result, we don't see the Rats progress, and this has been the bane of their existence for what feels like the last 2 preseason qualifiers, because Cenote has been no change for the likes of the Rats, and surprisingly, this is one of our 7 teams who have managed to make it all the way through here. And even when we talk about their performance in semifinals, where we do get a little taste of what could come through, in this recent week, they placed 3rd overall with 53 points and 35 kills. Wow. Somehow, someway, the Rats, obviously a heavily steeped roster with Pro League experience, Tolkien, Sorbin, and Mania, literally probably one of the longest standing 3-mans in all of Apex Legends, know how to qualify. They know how to make it through and through here. It's just surprisingly, when we get to those finals, it has been a struggle to perform in a way that keeps them competitive in the overall standings. They are one of the few, and if not only, teams that have made it to all 3 that are struggling at the bottom end of 2,100 points here.
Wow, that is going to be really, really tough for them to try and make a play on that. I mean, anything is possible. And granted, with this series and then one more preseason qualifier series after this, just before the holiday break, anything can happen, but it's really now or never. Like, if you
Yeah.
were going to put a lot of points on the board, it has to be today. And when I'm kind of thinking about where we ended in map number one over towards Echo, I mean, that's exactly where Postman Tricks lands. There's no one
Yep.
really in Coastal Camp, Devastated Coast, that they can kind of extend out through there. And if you're going to get zone, that should be able to allow you that easy win, right? It wasn't easy by any means, and they were able to pick up 5 eliminations alongside of it. But for the teams that maybe had to make some of those long rotations, like Red Dragon, to be able to grab 14 points out of that coming from North Pad, really, that's impressive.
Yeah, and it's the same thing we need to see, say, out of teams like players who also have an extended rotation into circles like that, but weren't as successful as laying staking claim to the points that they needed to see here in game one. As a result, we still leave a headway for so many of these teams to catch back up, but granted, time is starting to tick here. 5 games is a lot, but when we talk about the overall scale of preseason qualifiers, today and next week are your last opportunity to claim the spots that count.
Which means we are that much closer to a year four regular season where who knows what is going to happen. I almost felt, Zephyr, as if the break between champs and now was an eternity.
No, it was.
It felt forever as we get into character select for our map number 2 on Storm Point. If you're just joining us, Postman Tricks, we're able to take the win in map number 1 with Death Wish and Red Dragon chasing them down on the leaderboard.
Our dropship will make its way through for the second time here. And before our zone claims the favor of RNG for many of the teams, a place that I'll be definitely looking at to start our match today will be Cenote. Myth versus Rats has been the namesake, not even just in this week, but also the previous week as well, where we did see Rats win, I believe, 2-1 up against them.
Let's see if they can do it again in Cenote. I guess I'll keep my eyes out over there as well. I'm sure our lovely observers behind the scenes will keep us abreast of all the action on any contest. I did see some interesting things happen toward Lightning Rod and Thunder. So that'll be kind of fun to see if it would be Death Wish who typically lands Stormcatcher if they'd like to extend out to that northernmost Thunderwatch to get in some early action as well.
Whoa. I was going to say, for McDudes and crew, this is not a solo operation here. There's double upon the take for this push, a small contest before even anyone has weapons to be found. Mozambique for Luxor will put them minorly up in what should be the success over here towards Zeus Station. Here comes that push, and I mean, it should be an incredibly easy take, but instead, Praxis actually gets the drop return on with the EVA 8. Another pickup from the other side from this team finding themselves put together. It'll be a Skydate from the namesake, from McDude. That lines up just a little bit short. Gotta come through now with the 30-30, the point blank, dirty. A Radiant transfer in a 2v1, though, is far enough and harder to eclipse.
Gonna be a little unfortunate trying to take down a Mastiff and an EVA 8 off rip when you just have essentially a Mozambique P2020 Radiant transfer to 30-30. I mean, overall, they were pretty consistent in terms of the loot that was available for this incredibly quick contest. But I guess, look, if I'm pushing up with a 30-30 at close range, the hip fire on it, still not preferential, especially if you're going up against a Mastiff. So unfortunately, McDudes will be the first team to fall yet again.
I'll tell you what, it's big success for Septic, though, continuing to perform here in their first representation. That is the second time they've wiped out McDudes, last time within Zeus Station itself. Big notable on the map here, Rats, alone in Cenote Cave. Myth Esports have opted for the heavier rotation outside of the devastated coast and launch pad here. And to be honest, into No Name Cascades, I wonder if they really have claimed the loot that makes this exchange worth it.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because Need More Bullets was originally going to be contesting players for Wall, and they've made their way down to Devastated Coast as well, which really makes sense considering you should not let Postman Tricks potentially have their choice between Coastal Camp, Devastated Coast, and Echo. So them kind of navigating to Echo off rip makes the most sense for them because they can still dabble and take an early engage but need more bullets should they decide to. And luckily we did get a good chunk of that ring. We will be going more north in favor of the wall. So the 3 big men are here to see what's up to the players.
I tell you what, for 3 big men, they need to kind of look in here, see that the hosts that are clear in the wall are actually going to be way more preferential in terms of positioning. I know they set up and tried it. For Drain Gang, though, losing out what might be the remnants in final licks of their health. Limek, a new face to pair alongside Seven and Ezzy for the preseason quals, will be dropped out. And with 2 remaining, Bacalao are going to be chasing this one down.
Needed to grab that early KP as needed, and they are still in hot pursuit and just need a couple connects here from the triple take to make this push through the rocks a little more manageable. But you can see here, Bacalao, they're going to elect to maybe rotate up through the right side on this hill, which I like a little bit better. It's a safer rotation for them and, you know, be better.
No interest in playing with further regarding their food here. They'll let Drain Gang reclaim what will be maybe potentially their further success by those revives. But I was darn sure that they were going to secure for rotation. Instead, they turn right round and are looking for the choke. This feels like kind of a delayed action that could have come through a bit quicker, especially if we were looking to extend on either that fight or further positioning. Hopefully this is more so a claim towards what they assume is late game rather than something like that.
That is true. It's one of those times where I wish we were almost privy to comms so we could hear the decision-making process of what they were looking to achieve from deciding with that delayed push through the choke. But the boys who went out a little bit earlier than they would have liked in map number 1, now needing find some engagement here. It's kind of a trapped position that I don't necessarily love for Clemmy, and that Arcstar probably just took them down. Now Grandmaster maybe trying to close the distance and just kind of finalize the deal there.
Yeah, I don't think Clemmy loved it either. It is a sad, sad place to be if you are a Clemmy lover right now. And for Grandmaster, could be worse as well. Thankfully, So Sister and Lyco are the 2 that will put them up. I will make a positive note, though, before we kind of like go further with that one, that yes, that is players. They have changed their names once again. I'd love to know what they are. These teams, they love to cause me pain upon the brain.
I don't think they know what a simple name change does to us, but if you're going to name yourself Big Man 1, Big Man 2, Big Man 3, oh, I'm sorry. I'm just going to utilize those. I don't care at this point because they are so much more exciting to me. And speaking of excitement, Forbidden Zodiac Pop Dog, and they've already got 1 knock just ahead of them. If you're going to knock the player that has the gold knockdown, well, then that should turn the tides in your favor.
Yeah. Ekio down there as well. Leaves this in a long-standing place of success as they will tend to the remnants of rolling teams here. Look towards these gravity lifts and see if we can track this one down. It will be a full rotation away from catch as they take towards the height of Barometer. For the remnants of Forbidden, though, gotta be careful. Post, Tricks, Clutch, all moving in, making their way here. The big beams from afar, a 30-30 to switch, will find the drop onto Aku, and it's only MG Clutch taking a tickle of damage in return.
Just able to get right back into the fight from a quick shield bat, and now post-kill electing to utilize the Dark Veil and try to capitalize on the rest. But being this far out on Edge is a little bit different from their map 1 trajectory. So if they are able to navigate their rotation to the northernmost side, up by wall, up in the middle of the hot dog buildings, as you love to say, then if they can do well on this map, it just shows they came to play. They came to get Roly.
Well, we'll see. It is a far bit of a dissonance in what we expect out of the performance of this team right now currently, but still that first KP that is picked up is hopes for the future here. Still though, spending a lot of time out towards the edge of this zone, and that further rotation won't be getting any easier the longer they waste here. Bacalao eliminated 19.
Yeah, that delayed rotation through choke not going to provide any kind of real value for them, but Septic here inside a pineapple. Looks like the res will come through from Praxis just as the well-timed push, and unfortunately not able to do too much there in that 1v2, but it does give Light the opportunity of having a knockdown shield and blocking this position. Looks like they may be going for the res as well, so we're going to trade it out.
Yeah, both teams getting themselves set back up here. Arguably, though, this will be the opposite side that finds himself at an early advantage. Nice peek through the stairwell from our Grandmaster friend here, and it will be the full wipe onto Pantheon there, as now Light and Prax will find themselves a happy home upon what is the, we'll say, sister pineapple.
The sister pineapple. It's like, hey, I just respect your opinion. I don't want your pineapple. I'll go take my own. And if we could just all wave the white flag here, that would be beautiful. But see, players here, they don't really want to do it. You just want to capitalize on what you've already started, but just solidifying that building for them would be so nice when you think about the teams that might have to push through wall. 3 big men, the boys all previously set up in the wall will likely have to come this way.
3 Dragons being one of them here for the Rats, ending up in an excursion once again out towards our edge, and it's none other than Post and Tricks here for them. It's barely a fight to be had, left up to just Tolkien once again, leaping towards the skies there. A small track from the remnants of Postman Tricks will make short work of the Rats.
The Rats will fall, and it seems as if they've suffered the same fate as map number 1 and Red Dragon. Now here and trying to clear this up. Geo, you are disgusting. Hipfire. Look, if you're gonna Hipfire, try to thirst someone, let's worry about the last member of the team. I understand you were looking for a shield swap potentially, but now look at what you found yourself in. The car has to go big here, and one last Hipfire to deal with Made in Heaven.
There you go. I know they nerfed the accuracy on the hipfire, but the 30-30 is still more than controllable when you put it into the hands of Go there. Meanwhile, on the other side of our friendly sister pineapples, siblings are betrayed. It will be players taking complete control of House and Space.
Now players should be able to navigate between these 2 buildings, and if someone wants to roll up on a trident, well, so Sister says no thank you, does a shield crack, hits the scan to find more information, is able to deal so much damage on 2 members. We just need to see where the rest of the players are so they can go ahead and finish this, because we were able to pick up 1 and a thirst. The players now still very healthy in this engagement.
Against Deathwish of all teams here after heavy leads in our first game. This could very easily be it. With that scan, information is completely found out, and the drops are to follow through here. So Sista on the low ground looking for an access point as that energy barricade comes down, but they don't even have to worry about what will now be a further push. Genos down, and potentially one more, with Smoke being the last remnant of defense. It's actually going to be a pickup from afar here that seals the deal from Gem.
We did see some damage coming in from other teams trying to get in on that engagement, but with Deathwish going out and after 15 points in map number 1, that pool will not be favorable. The boys need more bullets wanted. We'll have to navigate through either the wall and run the risk of running into players who have been kind of the owners of the pineapples, or we're gonna have to navigate from one of 2 chokes where 3 teams lie in wait throughout those buildings. This is not going to be fun for our teams.
Tell you what, it won't be fun for them, but it might not even be fun for Red Dragon here. That's the fight I'm watching more than anything. Postman Tricks is on their rotation out from zone, and if Red Dragon get claimed upon, that is a perfect spot for our Black Island endgame here. And you can see they've already made their way down. They're already putting damage down. Shots above. Post kill on 1 here as the Dark Veil comes out. That's not enough damage to be dominant in this fight, even if I think they'll stick the full Phoenix kit.
Still back up to fighting form, and the delay on Red, that engagement with the first member of Red Dragon, looked like they were looking to say, hey, can you 3-2-1 them with me? And then run the risk of almost getting post-kill down, but now that they've already got Geo down, who did so much in that prior fight.
Okay.
This is gonna be nice for Postman Tricks. They shouldn't be allowed to do this, honestly.
This is the issues, this is the fear had. Red Dragon here now down and out as just a duo are going to be well, maybe but a nuisance in the sides of Postman Tricks. All these teams rotating in from the south will lay their stake and claim. Moments for need more bullets. They made it to last endgame, and they look for great arc stars from above as an energy barricade still ticks below, and a Sheila defends from the side.
Yeah, that energy barricade did snare Thor for just a minute, but we've got some walls up. We just need to navigate the arc star through, and Lynx are trying to utilize Sheila to the best of their abilities. Trades coming in, but when there are 3 teams caught up in this choke, and it's Wanted, who is nearby the replicator, who has zone. Lynxer is forced to push towards the zone, but will be caught between 2, and there's nothing Need More Bullets can do, and Myth Esports to follow. Wanted able to have the most of the KP from those 3 teams, and is sitting pretty.
Nice rotation in there for themselves successfully. Meanwhile, for Postman Tricks, it is trying to claim this space held by the Dragons initially. MG Clutch is down and out. Postkill once again looking low. We'll go for the stick of that battery. You gotta hope, though, that they do not end up with a full wipe onto Clutch here. That would be amazingly detrimental to what could be a second win for this roster if they pull this fight off.
Trying to smoke out and hit the res with Tricks only able to suppress the fire, but takes a good chunk of damage. Still in a clean 2v2. The trade comes through, and now Postkill has to clutch up for the team against Red Dragon, but you must find the last member thus far, and even with hiding between the knockdowns, he's able to clutch.
And that's just experience. Experience on the weapon, experience on the mind when it comes to Postkill, as they are eliminated in 8th place.
Look, we were really excited, and it's unfortunate that they did fall, but that's because there was a third party upon a third party, and now 3 Dragons has set up where Red Dragons previously occupied.
Well, from 1 Dragon 2 to 3 Dragon 4, Dragons on the door, and now are hearing the knocking from outside. Shot in the back, though, from Gem, of all teams. That is a name that has continued to rear its ugly head here in today's fight. Notably, it isn't Gem who go for that push, right? It is the initial take from Hectic, of all teams, that pushed 3 Dragons down to a solo member, just Juicy.
And 3 Dragons is actually the only team to try and make a play early on for where that next zone will come through. But with Hectic and Gem facing off inside,
Oh my gosh.
see who can navigate it, throwing out all of the utility, navigating through arc stars. The smokes make things a little more difficult, but as soon as you set your sights on where that Prowler needs to go, we should be golden here.
We'll see 3 Dragons are able to get a small claim of revive up to Sunzi there, as it will be Gem who positions themselves at the highest advantage coming out from the west. Notably, though, all these teams are officially going to be losing out on that edge cover. It's just great timing from Gem, though, of all these teams to be playing for this space.
Gem is full 3 up, which will make things a little bit nicer. Smoking out the gravity and hitting the rotation. This will allow them to full send on to Hectic, which should only be 2 of them, but when you've got a little shifty Watson plays, you've got to be a little nervous. Looked like they were trying to kind of fence trap them, but resulted in Hectic falling immediately. Gem just looking so strong in their engagements and confident on their pushes.
That's great, and I know it doesn't say it, but I want people to know this as we continue to discuss. That's his Desu, right? And this players is Kazakh, 2 former members of that long-standing 7-8-9 roster. Now, quite literally, in our final moments of Game 2, competing against each other for that win.
Makes things a little more interesting for sure. 3 Dragons and Gem closest towards the next circle. Forbidden and players will have the longest rotation, so hopefully we're looking towards the catalyst on players to hopefully have a Dark Veil coupled with a couple Bangalore smokes to allow them just some cover through the water. But for Forbidden, won't have to cover as much water. It will still be relatively open for them.
We'll see if they make their way out and across with the success of the Dark Veil coming up big here. Juicy will be officially spotted out over on the edge and will send 3 Dragons home, down to just players and Gem there over on the side once more from the south. And for players, they're dominantly in control of this further and future zone here. It's looking dire straits for the remnants of this lobby.
Forbidden has been biding their time on not pushing in
geez.
just yet because Gem is being kind of decimated by players right now. I'd imagine that would be the kind of target that Forbidden would need to say, while this preoccupation is happening with these players, I'm gonna make my move. And Grandmaster, yes, this is your perfect time to hit that health reset before you set your tides on to the last team.
Over here from Forbidden, already knocked in many of their claims here at a huge disadvantage. Even playing behind the Caltrops, players will go for an easy push here, and with one last standing, will pick up their first of potentially many wins of the day.
Can we talk about just how dominating this victory was? At one point in time, 8 eliminations, 5 assists, so we could potentially see a 13 to 15 kill victory in map number 2, which should shoot them straight up leaderboard.
I mean, this is so much more important than people realize, especially after last week. Game 1 was nothing but a fluke here from the likes of players. This is a representation of what this roster is truly capable of when you put them on their best foot. And I'll say it, Kazakh, Fito, Jukes, you can't hide from us forever. You can't change your names forever. I will represent the teams that look as good as them. Let's take a look at the standings and see if they're on the top. I have an inkling of a suspicion that they might not be, though.
Ooh, interesting. Well, look, if we're going to have a tie for map 1, Postman Tricks, yes, they went out a little bit earlier than they may have liked in map number 2, but with that long rotation, they were able to find a good chunk of KP, a good 10-point game for them, but players shooting up that leaderboard, so this could make for a very, very title series for some of these teams. Gem, though, doing some work and finding themselves in 3rd, but Red Dragon having a 5-point game, just kind of holding on to 4th place, and Forbidden rounding out the top 5, but it's Deathwish who fell early and only picked up 1 point, Zephyr.
It's an issue for them that they need to solve here and not just rest upon their laurels of having that zone pull to them in the south. That gives them that major advantage here. But I'll tell you what, Tiff, already eclipsing almost close to 30 points, not just on what is assumed as the 1 roster that we're used to, but almost 2 right off the bat, tells me that we're going to have something almost akin to what we saw last week, where we had a massive, not a 2-horse race just yet, but a huge, heavy gap between the best of the best in this lobby and the rest.
But should we not get a heavy gap? Should we have constant chaos throughout the last 4 maps of the day? I would be more than happy, but we are going to cut to a quick break, and when we come back, we will have the final match on Storm Point. Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series. Year 4 preseason qualifiers. We're kicking things off on versus GG with the Emea region, and we've already finished 2 maps on Stormpoint with 1 to go. I'm Tiffany, that's Zephyr, and we are so excited to continue on the coverage for y'all.
That's right. I'm pumped in many ways. They're claimed upon here by Tiffany, but I'll tell you what, it's true. It may reside just deep down inside. Deep down inside, deep down inside. Okay.
What did you have for breakfast this morning, Zephyr? Like what
Never.
level of
Nothing.
energy did you
Nothing.
Nothing?
I never eat breakfast. Breakfast is a horrible meal.
Okay. Sure. Yeah, whatever you say. Regardless, let's pull up those standings because I am appalled, but what I am not appalled at is the fact that players in Postman Tricks are reigning supreme, tied up on the top of that leaderboard.
No, I'm far from surprised there. Players coming through as the most dominant roster thus far, I would say, in our preseason qualifiers that have yet to pick up a win. And Postman Tricks, a roster that, while is making new strides here, has the history that should be an expectation of a win. And the sad thing is, they need to have a win. Coming in this late into PSQs, we always see it, leaves you with no chance but to walk away with only the win. Your points after not showing up, at least for those first 2 weeks, will be an issue. Granted, I will have to check later and see if they were competing, maybe potentially under different team names. But at least right now, that's my current assumption.
That's the hard part, right, about the preseason qualifiers. A lot of people think, oh, well, this team has X amount of points. Well, actually, the points get divvied up between the players, and with so many roster moves throughout preseason qualifiers and team changes names, like, things happen, and we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, we will be focusing on who is going to reign supreme at the top of the leaderboard throughout our 6 maps of the finals, which, you know, it's tough, right? We have our teams that kind of go through the gauntlet of preseason qualifiers each week with multiple days of action, multiple rounds, and it is really just the craziest thing that you have to navigate to then come on to Monday and play this 6-map series.
Yeah, I mean, you go from having to put up the points that count early on in some of these more, I wouldn't say sloppy, but kind of that lower end lobby tier where you have to stay aggressive to qualify, to having to switch to a more, project oriented macro play style that puts you up against some of the best currently in the region, just shy outside of those pro league teams. And that's what makes PSQs so hard here. But I'll tell you what, it's not the end of the world. You've still got at least one iteration of Stormpoint to go in all of World's Edge in its glory here as we enter Game 3.
Yeah, so for McDudes who have gone out relatively early in the first 2 maps, running into some issues over towards Zeus Station, I would really like to see maybe a different approach. A lot of teams have already kind of moved their drop spots to where they will be uncontested. Similarly, that would be Myth. They were kind of hanging out around Rats inside of Cenote after map number 1, but elected to kind of join the tides of devastated coast early on. So I'd imagine we could see the potential of some teams shifting around yet again.
We'll see here. Obviously, Myth is the biggest name, but I am curious regarding that contest over up towards Zeus. If we do see a potential hands or let go, right, for most of these teams. For Myth, it's actually a return to the norm. They make their exchange, they play out over towards the east, and instead, I have to look for claims. A bit of an odd start here. Try to in hand is going to be a big one for Reaper, and especially with this early loot, leads me to believe that yes, they're going to find their way over towards our no name, no pull island out here towards the west instead of taking it directly toe to toe here in Cenote for the boys. Almost dead.
For the boys, almost, and they are. So significantly dead here at Stormcatcher, which if you think, this is kind of what I was alluding to in map number 2 that we actually didn't catch on broadcast. There's been a lot of action between Stormcatcher, Thunderwatch, and Lightning Rod, and with boys landing Lightning Rod / Thunder and Deathwish taking Stormcatcher, this was bound to happen.
It's an issue right now for the boys, a team that, once again, I mean, we kind of have a bit of higher expectations once again, one of those previous rosters who has their experience in Pro League alongside notably Heroes and, of course, the From Nowhere squad, one of the few teams to also qualify from PSQs in previous years here. So, to be stunted, at least in our third iteration of PSQs, is a bit of a surprise, especially for a team that overall is quite high in the average points.
For the Rats, they've also not necessarily had the best first two maps and would like to find some success here on map number 3 before jumping on over to the tried and true World's Edge. But it's very similar starts, right? They usually have about 2 blue shields, 1 white, but they just get caught out towards rotating towards that second or third ring. But for now, they've got their eyes set on Myth and kind of surprising them from above. And Tolkien does get a good crack, but it would have been better if we could have found a surprise knock.
Oh, we'll see. No knocks, no big surprises. All but the norm, all but the usual. And for Rats, it's once again a play back over towards Edge here. Something that I will point out, which I'll find surprising, is yes, this is a composition that does play around contesting for those edge-oriented fights, but this is a southern zone, one you would arguably say that they have one of the better rotations towards. So I'm curious to see if they try and maybe opt out for something a little bit more decisive, a little bit more stake and claim here in comparison to their previous games.
Oh, every time I see Big Man 1, Big Man 2, Big Man 3, I can't help but just smile. To be
3 big
honest.
men? Really?
The 3 big. I can't take it seriously. Like, what is next week? What is next week gonna look for us, Zephyr? Who is going to be the comedians that are the kittens gonna be back?
I rue the day that we'll walk into a PSQ and it'll be filled with far from just but joke names, but everything in the like and in between, and it'll be memes for days. I feel like they just want us to say weird things. Like that's the real thing. They just want us to be like 3 big men.
Yep, that's it, Zephyr. That's the right call. Good thing we've got the map over here to our right to see where the 3 big men will be heading. They're currently navigating Barometer alongside Forbidden, but we have yet another southern ring pole, and we know just how that turned out for Postman Tricks in map number 1, where it ended in Echo, right? But they've already chosen that we are going to play from coastal camp here and have set up their priority early. But for teams that will be making their way from Pylon, there will be a few, but this will be the next big area of contest, and even then so, Barometer, we knew this was going to happen.
Yeah, many teams set up here, and for our 3 big men with their 3 big stomping feet on their 3 big claims to space here in Barometer are quickly shunned away. For Forbidden now able to capitalize, and wow! A coup from afar with the 30-30, making quick drops onto big man number 1. Will leave just what big man left to survive here out towards the edges to Notav, who will inevitably be running up into at least some of those rotations like the Rats and Toe.
Kind of crazy. Big men fall pretty fast, and that's just what happens when you're a big man, right? You just got a further distance to fall. But Forbidden looking to chase down the lone member of that team, and to no surprise, when you've got a Bloodhound on your team, you're just going to keep scanning, keep hunting, and Big Man 1, you cannot hide behind that rock, and Forbidden will clean them up with ease.
Nope. A bit of a shame there for Forbidden now. Looking above. I like this from Ray. Keeping a consistent place of play here in the midst of Barometer gives them the iteration, knowing the fact that they're not completely safe. Teams have made further takes up towards this height, and it's the perfect opportunity for Aku and Zodiac to say, well, no worries.
Okay.
We're over here on the side finding 3 big men with their pants down. Okay, jeez.
You know what, Zephyr? No. No. 18 squads remaining. It's totally fine. Still heading over to the southern area. Forbidden has completely cleaned up Barometer, but I'd imagine that for teams that are still making that rotation, let's look on over at Coastal Camp, and we've kind of laid the land here. Postman Tricks has the building where the smokes are, and yeah, they're getting peppered from some of the teams in the distance, but overall, not bad positioning, and a lot of teams should be able to inhabit this area.
Well, it's plenty of space, but something that feels like deja vu here, especially starting to see Postman Tricks contain and contest here. It's a bit of a shame that we see that same similar pull. Granted, hopefully teams kind of learning early, now having their test from game one is now as they return past their midterms for their finals. That should be the perfect opportunity to not let that one slip up again.
Definitely don't hate this position. They're using the Trident and even the Pearson spikes for cover to kind of hold up on those zip lines. But back towards this area, you just get a very good lay. It's going to be Gem, who did so well in map number 2, running into a little bit of issues. Mwaha hee hee. These names.
I think I'd like to know if that, I think that is Estesu, right? Because Billy obviously is an APAC like superstar, and so I don't think that's the actual Billy. And instead, I assume that is what we see from the characters there. So I assume that's Estesu with the.
Okay, look, it sounds a little bit better if you say it, but regardless, good positioning here. They will be able to hold on to this. Now, we run the risk of where is this zone going to pull? Coastal Camp only has the kind of the front half of it included in the next zone, and even just a little bit of echo. So we will have that entire choke. I'd imagine this is going to pull 2 pylon, but I could be crazy. But the Rats will have to make it there. Mania once again running into some issues. This mid to late game-ish, right? The beginning towards the end where the Rats just find themselves not able to make it throughout their rotation.
I am shocked that for a team that is so head set on playing out a composition that exists heavily within the realm of fighting, outside of maybe the one success against Myth, and I say success lightly because they only wiped 2 and left 1 in the Remnants and still died earlier than them, they have not been successful on a take yet here. And especially as a team that has, I mean, probably one of the greatest out of this lobby in terms of continually making it finals again and again and again, the headstrong decision to sit here and continue to play it out like that has built them nothing. Not today, not last week, not even in the previous.
Wanted. That's so unfortunate for them. We're looking for a little bit of an evac tower rotation, but with so many teams looking over at you from Coastal Camp, it will get shot out from them and they have to make the rest by foot, which really isn't that big of a deal, except you've got one bamboo tree and a little bit of cover in 13 seconds till you get the next smokes. This is so unfortunate, and the frag gets rejected onto them, but it doesn't matter. They're able to find some damage, and Deathwish have wanted exactly where they want them.
Jeez. I was about to say, maybe they have an opportunity after seeing now but a stick and a wingman in hand. Deathwish, well, I don't think this is a wish of death for but themselves, but for their enemies that lay literally wait here. No movement, no area to claim, no place to play. Danny is quick to pick up 3 from below.
Danny just did everything that they needed to do. It was such a clean, even while they loot the Radiant transfer coming in from Shades to provide just a little bit of security as we make our way over towards Echo. It's going to be Septic taking down the bottom of this multi-layered building as they still make their way with that ring knowledge towards the west.
This is a team that has found some of their earlier successes, especially when we talked about some of the contests. Still, though, like you said, finding their place of play, finding their position to work with. The same can be said for Myth here, needing to make their cross down south. Are blocked currently by the likes of Rad Dragon, another team that likes to make their way down from the north here. This exchange has to come up big, and even for Red Dragon, need to be considering what and how they'll be playing this one out in the next minute.
And I think that's going to be a very valuable question, because when you look at the zone pull, it's not going to pull anywhere near Pylon. It's not going to pull to the choke by Echo. It is straight pulling to Coastal Camp. For teams like Postman Tricks, who made that call, Deathwish, and even players playing the choke and not committing either to Pylon or Coastal, that is going to be so preferential for them. But for teams like Red Dragon, like Myth, well, still got a good chunk of way to go in 28 seconds to really make that move.
And this is not an answer I mean, this is biding your time, looking for the exchange. Now, granted, I know teams do like to make their way across more successfully when we talk about that round close when things are getting a bit hectic here, but unless it's an evac tower or the most successful super fight of all time, I don't think that's big ups for Myth and even for Red Dragon here. Pushing into this choke, into this place to play, I don't think I've ever seen a team make a successful walk up from this spider cave into height.
Hey, now could be the first time. Regardless, Forbidden will not be making it out of the pylon. They will fall. So for all of our other teams that are still trying to rotate, it looks like Valkahal will be one of the first teams to elect that dark veil, smoke and cover, just kind of running towards. But this is where essentially players were last standing, not committing to Coastal or Pylon. And since they are running into resistance, it's only a matter of time before they meet the fate towards the players. We could have a good chunk of a 3v3 here, but with so many teams still rotating and not having a place just yet, this is not where you want to be fighting.
Shot in the back here with no place to play ahead. It still is a position into zone, but it leads the biggest question, the remnants of how they remove themselves from this position later when we keep heading south is still an answer left uncontested here. Gem, a team high into the embers of last game, now punished from Myth on their rotation. Meanwhile, for the McDudes, pressured upon here, over on the edge, over in the choke. Catch looking for once more as McDude is completely wiped and eliminated. Pick up another onto Corn, and they're down to just one across here.
Justice for the McDudes, who just cannot catch a break and get things moving here in the finals. But rolling teams who have been rather under the radar for the first two maps, looking to maybe kind of kick things into gear for them. But Ekio here trying to dodge the Arcstar, does just that, does get stunned up just a little bit, but overall pretty good avoidance. But we have to keep moving, and with Myth Esports and a lot of teams kind of collapsing on each other as that rotation out of Pylon, couple grab lifts for the rotational advantage, but Myth is getting down and dirty and they need to stay healthy. And with 1 HP, the shield bat, does it come through? It does. You have so much pressure here from external forces.
Yeah, it's Gem. Gem on the outside here are the thorn in the side of this exchange. And Drain Gang will be focused over on the side as Limek, now that last standing member, will inevitably be picked off from above. You can only hope Myth have found their recovery. Is now even Bacalao getting into the midst of things here. It'll be that full wipe as Myth go down. Bacalao in their own regards. A quick shield swap from Senza. Hip-fire G7 Scout sends Gem out in 13th.
Okay, I was just recently worried about Bacalao when they were just making that rotation kind of towards where players had went, but instead of, you know, just fighting forward towards where players went, they doubled down, cleaned house from the rotation out of Pylon, and yet now they have to cover some open distance. As you can see, we have the lone member of McDudes that will likely meet their fate at the hands of either Bacalao or players who are looking to encompass so much space. So that is really interesting because it kind of helps you pick up KP throughout, but with the entire of the lobby in the next zone already and not enough buildings, Red Dragon, I'm a little worried about y'all.
They're good. I mean, go is in. Granted, it is on the edge here and far from perfect. The big thing I'm watching is the fact that they're picking up free KP over towards the side and sending Bacalao out from what was a massive success on their play over towards edge. Big damage down and back, and now the players looking for contests over on the side of fence line will eliminate McDudes.
We were definitely a little worried about that, but McDudes will get found out. Players who had a large chunk of space towards this end game still has plenty of cover throughout, sharing the resources, have the Moby, and you know, pretty much a perfect 30-30 aside. We're just missing the Skull Piercer, but coming off a map 2 victory and making it towards end game here, you just have to lay the line of Postman Tricks, who have been really good on Storm Point when it comes to the southern zones, have been in Coastal since pretty much the start of this game. You've got Need More Bullets, who already have taken down a knock because Lynxer's just a Sentinel Demon.
We'll see. We'll see. I'm still looking for the shots that'll end up on the Zephyr highlight reel. That's right, the Zephyr highlight reel. It's the reel where I get to cast you being extra cool here. And at least right now, we're still missing. But potentially in the future here for Need More Bullets. They have had a rough start today, but are continually making it to these end zones where they have the opportunity to shine here. It's just been difficult claiming a lot of that space late game alongside things like the Rampart.
Look, the Rampart, it's one of Dia's favorites, and if he could have a Rampart on every team, I'm sure he would, but I was worried about Red Dragon earlier, and it looks like I should have been worried about them now. Yes, they've navigated towards the central zone, but with a couple of sky nades, Poke and Tricks will kind of deal all of the damage, and man, you know, they were safer in the wide open than they were in the ring.
Gosh, that's how, when you're that good to just drop nades, you don't even fight your own battles. You leave to the ordinances, and now for Postman Tricks, they are completely in their lonesome at an advantage from this building. They don't have to worry about their height being an issue, and to be honest, if I was anyone that just saw that take place, I'm taking notes. Not just notes about what to do in this situation, but notes regarding not to play that position.
Look, I mean, in their defense, usually towards the end game, most teams have utilized all of their ordnance and nades on rotation or just fighting poke damage. But for our seasoned veterans who are so used to playing in Pro League, a lot of them will try to keep as many as they can going into towards that end game. So knowing that that's the opening into a fight that you need, or maybe you don't even need to actually shoot your guns, you can just use the nades. And check out the positioning to the right, though, Zephyr, because, man, this is going to be wild.
Okay, we've got Septic, corner. Need More Bullets, fence line, corner. Rolling teams, literal corner. Players, fence line. Everyone else stuck inside a house. This is about as bad as game one when we talk about endgame teams alive. You want to talk about EMEA PSQs being competitive? This is a perfect example. Full rosters, full 3, 9 squads remaining on a round 6 final close.
And rolling teams are focused on healing up for the big bout that's bound to unfold with 9 full teams, 27 players in our lobby. These are the moments that we wait for as Apex casters, the end games that are fully stacked with battles all around them. And Postman Tricks, they're getting that early action, finding at least another 2 KP for them, and the side swipe comes through. We lose out on one because Grandmaster has the Craver.
For players down to just a solo member will inevitably be picked up there with little space to play. Postman Tricks are forced to drop down from their height to recover before their final moments. Taking this position away from them will be huge, as now I believe Hectic, yes, making their way finally above in their own namesake, will be forced to drop back down. Great coverage from Postman Tricks here.
And as we get a beautiful look from the top down, thanks to our observers, and our teams are getting ever so close towards each other. It's Need More Bullets who had the fence line. They have pushed in, found 2 knocks. Septic will be eliminated. They've been able to keep a majority of their health in check as they continuously fight forward. Taking to the roof will be Lynxers, immediately getting those rampart walls up as quickly as possible. And they just have open season onto the lobby.
This is great. Getting those walls out in play is what they need, but it's a bit too late with not much more to spare. A grab lift for height to potentially give them their advantage is what they need as they launch upon the likes of Postman and Tricks. Now from behind the death boxes, Made in Heaven will be picked apart in their final moments. For Need More Bullets, it's a final wall up from Lynxer, trying to bide their time before dropping below. It's up to Lynxer, but is still picked apart in the end. Hectic down to 1, and Deathwish of all teams from below is your winners of Game 3.
Danny down below from Deathwish with their death note in hand. Need More Bullets, Hectic, all of them must fall, and only Deathwish will stand, in which they really needed a bounce back game here before we jump on over to World's Edge. Now, mind you, if you're just joining, Deathwish was in 2nd place after map 1 on Stormpoint, so getting a win in map 3 will be so vital for them, considering how much turmoil we've had on the leaderboard already. Zephyr, this is the preseason qualifier week that I've been waiting for. So much back and forth.
At least on Stormpoint right now, those teams, I mean, already seeing an improvement regarding the space of play here, understanding these POIs even better here. For Deathwish, I gotta say, it's the Watson that comes out to save the day in the end, able to get out early on that low ground, place out all those fences to provide what would be the easy stuns and damage for the duration of their stay there, as most of our teams were actually really trying to contest for that high ground position that was initially held by the likes of Postman and Tricks. As a result, it gave them plenty of time to contest, seal the deal on their low ground 3v3s, and set up for what looked like a perfect end game. Let's look at those standings, see if it puts them, though, upon the top.
And it almost does, but not quite. Postman Tricks, who got yet another Southern Zone in their favor, were able to pick up a good chunk of eliminations and placement points to kind of keep them at the top by 4 points. But overall, not too bad, because Deathwish after map 1 was in second place, fell off just a little bit and now returned to that. But it's still incredibly close, with players who won map number 2 rounding out your top 3. But for Gem and Need More Bullets, Zephyr, they are so incredibly close and staying in the fight before we move over to World's Edge.
That's right. A 10-point difference in a 12 alongside Need More Bullets means that it is just one game, not just for them, but even hectic down to Forbidden in the face of what will be World's Edge. When we come back from our halfway point break, we introduce the map that you know and love. Stick with us over here on Versus.
Three games down, 3 games to go. We are halfway through week 3 of the Apex Legends Global Series preseason qualifiers. And now only time will tell as we move on over to World's Edge. Zephyr, who will be able to get that auto qualification spot for today?
I'll tell you what, as we look at those standings, currently the answer is Postman Tricks. They've kept it consistent and have shown through and through out to all of our Stormpoint games. And some may look towards those Southern pulls and have their claims to state otherwise. But hey, even making it through game 2 is enough of a contest in that fact alone. The question, though, still yet remains as we make our way towards World's Edge, especially with new names among our top 4. How do they perform on the map that they know best?
That's going to be a really big question, especially after last week when we had so many geyser pools on World's Edge, which are some teams' least favorite type of zones. I think we even had if I'm not mistaken, it was a skyhook ending as well. So a couple chaotic zones for World's Edge. You never know what could happen here. I would honestly let me have a thermal station zone. I haven't seen one of those in a minute that I've gotten to cast over. So that's where I'd love to see us move towards kind of that southwestern side. But for three dragons, even Red Dragon in particular, would love to see more out of you on the back half. And the boys. The boys are up there in points and kind of needed to have another solid week showing to maybe take off a little pressure of that final preseason qualifier, because anything can happen. We know how those earlier rounds are, especially with some of them being only 4-game series. It can really throw a wrench into our teams that are looking to be consistent.
It's something that we'll need to see them all consistently work their way through under the same guise of that hopeful success among the rest here. But I really look towards Postman, Tricks, Deathwish, and Gem more than anyone else because of the previous performances that they have in PSQs not amounting to the necessary points that they need to qualify on that alone here. That's why they keep it consistent, right? I don't worry about players or need more bullets at this point. They've made it to the last two here. If they walk into next week successfully, they are all but confirmed to be in Pro League. The same can't be said for these three who absolutely have to walk away with a win.
Definitely. And I'm looking at teams like Rats, McDudes, Three Big Men. They've had some early issues on Storm Point through kind of the mid-game rotational aspects, and McDudes, even on that early game. I'm hoping with the fact that they might not be vying for contests here on World's Edge, or they be, well, as our players get locked and loaded in the dropship and ready for map number 4, our first one on World's Edge, I guess time will tell, because if you are going to make some contests and some moves, we might need to look towards taking them on Deathwish players, Postman Tricks. That's where I would aim.
Hey, I'll let the players themselves figure it out here as they'll be on their way forward with their own place of play. Granted, let's take a look, though, and see how the remnants of some of our other teams that have made their way consistently are doing here. I look towards the lower end of the leaderboard as a result. Obviously, Rats have been a big discussion in trying to figure out their place. But the big one I'm really curious about today of all teams is the boys. Notably from 5th in PSQ1 to 9th in PSQ2, albeit one good game will keep them a little bit more competitive on the board. This is their worst performance by far for a team that started off our PSQ strong.
And that's a really tough position to find yourself in, especially given that points are on the line and you are already so high up there, right? Granted, they were sitting in 5th place overall, just behind players by about 120 points, but they still needed about 900 between them and 202 at the top. But I say 202 because that name isn't even on the finals list thus far. Stay Healthy, LVH, they are absent from this as well. And a lot of teams were keeping their eyes on 40% worse. Well, they did not make the finals also. So they're going to have to go into that final week and completely lay that on the line. But for our teams, 3 more games to fight for that spot on the top. There's still time, right? I mean, like 38 points being kind of that benchmark point threshold that we need to look at. Even Red Dragon and Forbidden are just 14 points away. That is an actual win with just some solid KP, and your entire game has changed. And we saw it happen last week, Zephyr. Teams that were at the top of the leaderboard, they were dominating, right? But some will also throw at least one donut in the mix of things and just have a slight mistake, but you just can't bet on that.
No, and as a result, while it isn't the perfect scenario, right? I mean, to kind of work your way in on the second map this late into it, it still isn't available, right? So for teams that are even as down as out as the boys that I bring up earlier, you do have the opportunity within 1 to 2 games to be just in touching distance of the top. But I warn squads all around the bend here. This is something that continues to accumulate and continues to grow as an issue here. The boys in these teams, they need to keep this consistent, right? Especially for those that have shown up. This is not like our former PSQs, where you can just show up to every finals and then walk in to Pro League. That has been something that has happened quite literally for the last 2 years straight. This is the first time that play has elevated to a level that your performance and your individual success as a roster within the finals is going to impact whether or not you get into Pro League. It comes down to the official top 20 standings now.
And I think that's something that's really important as you talk about just like getting through these preseason qualifiers and gearing up for Pro League. There are so many opportunities for you to perform well and try to get into scrims that happen almost every week, right? They're very consistent. And a lot of our teams that have been performing well are those teams that got into scrim lobbies and practice and reviewed VODs and just really made that big effort. But it doesn't end here with preseason qualifiers. For our teams that have already qualified, no days off, passion, just from the Emea region alone, you got that auto qual spot. But from our teams that have been playing week in, week out, that maybe don't qualify till week 4, you just get that extra competitive nature. Now, granted, once you hit Pro League regular season, the entire game will change. It'll be completely different.
And that is something that I always am kind of considering, because at least now I've got to consider it. I've got Pro League coming up. Ways you got to be focusing in a lot of regards there, right? How do these teams realistically match up? It's not we love to compare against the caliber of these lobbies, but the truth is, especially for teams like No Days Off and Passion through and potentially the next 6 that are to join them, you're not to be compared against the likes of these teams. You're going up against the best of the best in the EMEA region, competing for lump sum, major $1 million prize pools, and the positions to be alongside playoffs and the championship if you can work that way through. You need to be absolutely crushing these lobbies or in the position to do so in the future if you want to sit among the best.
And that's where things all kick off here in the preseason qualifiers over on Versus GG. But now we turn our attention to World's Edge for the final 3 maps of our Emea series. And if, hey, maybe you're sitting here asking, where NA? Well, that'll be here later, approximately like 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time will be North America on Versus GG. But for now, 3 maps stand between who will be next team solidified in that regular season Pro League.
Well, we'll start off here on World's Edge with the new knowledge of the teams that are representing for the very first time and how that might impact what we see starting off, especially towards areas where contests are likely. For 3 Dragons, they've got someone to claim potential strife against here on the edges of Fragment.
A Fragment. I do like kind of early game fights around here, and if you're already going to find a flatline off rip, it's not necessarily too bad unless you only hit 3 bullets in 1 clip. Then it's a little unfortunate, but those are just some warning shots. I beg to differ.
Casual warning shots towards the gems, not looking to shatter them early here. I believe Billy will be able to find their way back towards the no name. It was a bit of a kind of a quick exchange, trying to see if that was a bit of freedom allowed towards the Fragment area, right? And instead you find out, nope, lay stake and claim. You got to find yourself your own grand positions. For players here, they're sneaky.
You're sneaky. Look, hey, you've got to be. But players coming into the final 3 maps of the day with 30 points, just 8 points out of the lead, which is coveted by Postman Tricks. And as we navigate just ever so closely towards our team here in Big Mod, look, I'm down to see a team rat on someone and then take them by surprise. But you see the Bloodhound scan come through, they open up the supply bin, and maybe no surprise is necessary.
Bacalao, as most notably the team that starts off there in Big Mod, made quick rotations out. They take away with them the major mod weaponry that represents currently in the hands of Esk here with that 301, and try to find Hectic, but that early rotation towards the geyser itself makes for a difficult follow.
Look, I was going to say, as soon as you said R301, I was like, wait, someone crafted it? But no, Bacalao was able to get that weapon from Big Mod and might be the only R301 we see in the lot.
Hey, Put some respect on the granddaddy of superior weaponry in Apex Legends. There was a day, back in my day,
Back in my day.
when the 301 was the dominant household item and SMGs were put to shame. We only knew the R99 in my day.
Look, I'm not hating. I used to be an R301 enjoyer. Went into the crafter along with the Volt. I was like, I was literally still using this, and now times are changed. Now we just see Hemlocks, 3030s, flatlines,
Just
R99
disgusting.
and cars. It's just like always that.
I say that as I rack up absurd point scores from the likes of a 3030. Tell you what, it's even more disgusting when the presence of players like this. For Hectic, big rotations. We talk about Geyser, they're already on their way forward towards the zone that we will see them lay stake to home here. Need more bullets getting themselves set up, but are pressed upon by the likes of Drain Gang. Links Dolphin, Tryhard Thor, lower as the door comes down. A quick Sheila finds one to take it 2v2, but the burn! It's up to Dolphin from below to survive.
At least Dolphin has the gold shield to allow for a quick reset. We've seen how Skynades worked in favor for Postman Tricks. Can we find some success here? But boys also getting into the mix of this, and G Dolphin being the solo here are surrounded so heavily. This is going to be more of a recovery mission for looking for banners while the chaos ensues.
And it's such a shame for Need More Bullets, who, I mean, honestly, we've been talking about them again and again, waiting for them to show up, and even today is far from a poor performance. I mean, currently behind by what? Only a handful, 12-ish points there. It is the opportunity for them to show up where they have not in recent weeks, and to go out or face difficulties this early on is such a shame.
Perceptic, who's over here in Skyhook, still making a play for the team inside the building. We need to keep our eyes on it. The energy barricade was expended, and just like that, Light is able to take a good chunk of it down. Elsewhere, Postman Tricks, your #1 team in the lobby thus far, has 2 members down.
That's a big issue for them, especially after leading all day long here. Full wipes coming through as well here. Septic, though, starting to break on through the other side. Will find their return. A grab lift accumulated. Love this under position from Prax. If only the damage could come through to follow up with that first knock. Instead, it's a double wipe there from above. Prax looking for an exchange. Has to follow up on the door. Able to find the crack. I love the spikes on the... They are ticking. Finds wanted as a result from that tactical.
Look, I am telling you, there is something to be said about Catalyst. And when you have an exceptionally skilled player that can just utilize all of her package, you called the spikes perfectly, right? It's, hey, you're already hitting for flesh on the jump down. If someone is healing behind a door, that's where you break out those spikes, and that completely turned that fight around. Where it was a 1v1, you took advantage of it. Now we turn our sights on to players who came in 3rd place and would like to move up the leaderboard, and they just need some KP to do it. Grandmaster putting down the damage. Thank goodness for that Digi threat. It's going to make such a world of difference against the Bangalores.
That's the combo, and it looks like all 3 members, Digi in hand. I thought they were supposed to be making that baby rarer. That's
definitely
for the
not
players.
rare.
It is the perfect play here against the can't see meta, and instead there will be maybe not the KP picked up by them, but the full wipes coming through off of the other side there. Forbidden Gaming getting into the mix of things with mix down to 1.
Forbidden, though. First time on World's Edge for all of our teams, and curious to see how they fare for the mid game. They've often got caught out just on unfavorable circle pulls. Forbidden in that map on Storm Point, when they wouldn't necessarily choose Coastal Camp, they chose Pylon. Did not get the luck of the draw on the ring pop, so hopefully we will find some more favorable calls towards the end game, but you still have to deal with players just on the outskirts.
Looks like they'll be opting for a little bit of a southern pull here in terms of that rotation. Granted, you have to wait and see how that fares for the end, but it is still very, very early. One big issue, though, is the fact that this is still a heavy heavy rotation out for many of these teams. And we talk about 19 squads remaining. I know a lot of these teams are reduced down to but the remnants, with 6 already eliminated from that total player score. But truth be told, still walking into end zones where we see 9, 10 squads remaining. That's the issue that sets ahead of the players, or for any one of these teams who are a little bit later than usual to these necessary rotations.
Yeah, as it stands right now, we're still pulling towards countdown through landslide. So even Skyhook, our teams that we recently saw, their septic will have to rotate out. Red Dragons kind of just holding here. They will be okay for now, but Forbidden will need to continue their journey on, as well as Myth Esports and Bacalao. One left standing in the form of Sens, running into some issues here. Thank goodness for the teams utilizing the knockdown shield so we could heal, but it might not be enough. Yes, you can put down some damage, but you will fall. You do not have the numbers advantage. That goes to the boys.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't look like it's much better for the likes of the boys there. Extended already with the black hole looking for its pull. Black hole will be barely able to find the cover that counts here to keep the boys' dreams alive. They'll be able to play back towards landslide, but we both know that's as hard as it gets for a position to truly play in when we talk about these countdown end zones.
Can be really tough, but I don't hate where Drain Gang is. Yes, they have kind of the northernmost side of Countdown, which will be essentially that ring ending zone. As we pull up the map, it's three dragons. I just read 3 more dragons. I don't think we can possibly have enough dragons in this lobby, but they are taking on Need More Bullets, and there's kind of a dragon sandwich. Septic will have to rotate whether they choose to come in on that western side of Countdown or through the choke point and take down the dragon. That's why they're leaving one member out there just kind of waiting to see, should we get a rotation from Monument? Should we get it from Skyhook? They're keeping that information. But for Forbidden and Rats are who I'm worried about, Zephyr.
I mean, the nice thing here is that they at least get to come and claim upon a standard 3v3, which is what they've built their comps around. If you've got a chance to prove it, now is the best opportunity. We check in with Postman Tricks, who, albeit fall a little bit earlier on from what we saw in that kill feed, seem to be making claims back towards their success. Mirage isn't particularly the best setup for the final endgame here, but it is giving them the survivability. It's this cross that's going to become the big issue.
Can we talk about Postman Tricks right now? We saw 2 members of this roster get full. They're back up in Adam, thankfully. And with the changes to the res system, obviously they would keep their shields and their weapons despite no attachments. But they have to fare here against Made in Heaven. Yes, you jump off of Mirage Voyage, but you will have to continue climbing straight towards Made in Heaven.
The big thing is contesting for blue boxes on the southern side. It's a notable zone. And even if it finds its way back up more directly towards the landslide side of things, you still have to make a claim up towards that height if you don't have things like evac in hand. For players on the opposite side of this wall, it's a struggle getting out of the box, being a little bit too far forward a bit early here. This is the punishment of the open angles that come alongside zones like landslide.
Forbidden, though, able to deal a good chunk of damage still on that very outer edge, vying against Gem here, and so many teams on the horizon. Dark Veil was expended, should only be up for just a little bit longer, and Ray here just trying to find any kind of angle to be of value. We do not have the Rolling Thunder available and no Dark Veil, because no Catalyst on the roster for Forbidden to even help them just navigate a little bit further. But they do have 15 seconds until the ring collapses, but they'll still be safe for now.
It's a tough spot here, but it's not one that will pay the price immediately. But you can see the wolves ahead. I don't know what wolves smell, but Forbidden Gaming be the treat behind this box. Zodiac looking for the remnant peaks to try and make that one happen. Meanwhile, back towards Countdown, what seems to be the place of play for so many of our teams. Drain Gang are finally outside of this building with big men below. Instead, it's a cross that they look to contest. Limek with a great opening crack and some amazing damage. It's going to be great in terms of this closing zone. They take advantage of low resources. They take advantage of the position and timing here to give them, hopefully, this wall clear to their back.
They were able to grab at least one knock, and they've been here since relatively the beginning of this map on World's Edge, and a Rolling Thunder does get expended, and they just navigate the inside of this building, and it's not necessarily too bad because they've been playing a little more conservatively. They'll extend out, deal damage, and then back away, and Limek able to grab a really solid angle double down by 2 arc stars, but it's the 30-30s from a distance that are rather unforgiving.
Ooh. Well, at least for the likes of Need More Bullets, they will try on the edge. For Gang, it is the perfect crack to work with. Wiping from above. Seven's got to take at least 1 second before absolutely dumpstering down below. Taking out the trash here. Seven will once again, he won't even go back to checking this one out, looking for the success after some of that easy damage.
Yeah, they're coming into this map in 12th place with 11 points, so if they could throw a massive one down, it could really change the trajectory for the Drain Gang, but it's Need More Bullets with G-Dolphin left standing with 17 squads remaining in this zone, and we saw just the issue that kind of Need More Bullets had gone through, right? Immediately losing some members early on in Countdown. They get some people back up and in it, and G-Dolphin finds himself alone yet again.
This is a big issue, but I like the answer from Drain Gang, immediately dropping down that evac tower to look for space to play here in Landslide. It is absurd, though, that we talk about what feels like an insane amount of teams alive in one of the open-ended zones in all of Apex Legends. Surprisingly, Drain Gang do make their cross, but the minute they land are punished nonetheless here. Limek down from Thaco on the boys, and Seven and Ezzy looking no better as they're forced to claim space behind smoke in exchange of the wall there. The only thing you can do at this moment is hope that they forget about you.
Yeah, and as that ring starts to close in, it's going to force our teams to really think about where they need to play as that zone continuously pulls towards Landslide. Teams like Myth, teams like the boys, and even the Rats who were playing that choke point where Vault is, walk into a relatively early safe space that they can control in Landslide. And when I say safe space, I'm not talking about the boys in an RV. It's really tough to maintain, and even with McDude's falling and rolling teams not able to necessarily navigate their way in, Ekio just trying to thrive here, and it's unfortunate because you do walk in, you find a 1 clip, but that's on Ezzy. We knew they were in trouble. Can you find another? Because you are making the most out of a very tough situation. Okay.
In a 1v3 there, he pulls it off. Oh, a quick beam or two and a hip fire from the 30-30 at least secures the extra placement and the damage that may. I don't care if this is your last moments. You proved yourself. You made a stake. You made a claim there, and it's a name now. At least for me, I'll never forget. For Forbidden Gaming, they will set themselves up in perfect control as they them are in full 3-man. The big names are falling. Post-man tricks completely eliminated in 11.
I thought I was reading an epitaph early on, and I was like, oh, this is the end, everything is over, and then I'm proven wrong. But for Forbidden, we're trying to rotate in towards the southern side, dealing a good chunk of damage. The trade comes through, and Zodiac now needs to double down and help out where Ray has fallen. But you're kind of navigating from the south to the north, and Aku does join in and is trying to solidify it, but will not work. Forbidden will fall, and it's going to be Rats who want to make a quick third-party act on Gem, and rolling teams meet their end as well. But for Rats, we had the biggest question for them coming into World's Edge, and they are saying, we know this map, we had a priority rotation, and now we have the space.
Oh man, it's more than the space. It is a prime and perfect position into that final zone. Look at the stack towards the north here. A massive claim, players making their way in. They're trying to play around the fence line, and it starts off good. Knocks onto the boys, knocks onto Red Dragon. They just need to stay alive as 3 here. But the height from above here, they cannot allow this peak to come through. Finally above the fence line, but shot out from afar. They'll find a double knock, but they'll need 1 more.
Death Wish has fallen. Your winners from map 3. Players looking to make a run for the top of the leaderboard, do just what they need to do to take out 3 big men. Now into our final 4 squads with Red Dragon fallen. It could come down to a nice engagement between Rats and Myth Esports to really give them the best part of this ring in Landslide. Radiant Transfer has come through, which will really help Tolkien on the bolstering of the push and trapping them within that energy barricade. They've already picked up 2, they just need to find the final.
It's good, but that barricade is punishing in terms of this push here for the Rats. What has been fantastic all game long is punished by tapping to the metal a little too quickly there. They lose out on Tolkien, and instead it's once again over to the side. Sorbin just needs to land one more shot to seal the deal, send Myth home, and now hopefully secure the revive onto Tolkien.
Yeah, but we need a quick reset here, and no Radiant Transfer available just yet, so we're gonna go for the heals. The boys out towards the right need to turn towards the players in the front. So if I'm the boys, I'm biding my time. There's only one of me left, so I don't really need to push into this just yet. Kind of let those 2 duke it out and see if you can come in for like a little solo shenanigans third party at the end.
It's a question, though, that remains is who they may throw a wrench into the plans of set beside the Rats. The boys are in a position where they can easily walk and say, I know I'm not getting second or third, but 1 KP might be what they want. For the players opting to take edges over sides here towards the east, they cross, utilizing that Dark Veil up, but look at the space in play here from the Rats. Vaco now right above the remnant of the players.
It's really smart for them to prioritize just grabbing that extra KP, but it doesn't even go to players. Rats are able to pick it up, steal straight from them, and they have taken so much damage throughout, but it doesn't matter. They turn their tides towards the Rats, picking up 2, picking up 3, players taking map 4. Didn't matter how much space the Rats had. Didn't matter that they ripped that KP from the boys to them. They said, we'll just go ahead. We'll take the 12 placement points and a couple more eliminations. Thank you.
I don't care. I just, never put the wingman in package ever again. That's all I'm gonna say. Get that thing out of there as an heirloom. It is disgusting, an insane, an inordinate amount of damage there in that end zone with a wingman in play. Puts players on top of the rest in what felt like a very dominant control by Rats, but with smokes out, digis in hand, they were not worried about the push.
It was crazy, and you're right. It's a good call on the wingman. We've seen it happen and turn the tides in so many engagements just here in our 6-map series where we've only had 4. Let's go ahead and pull up those standings, see just how it planned out for the players who have now taken 2 victories overall in 4 games. So 50% of the wins to the players. Crazy.
Okay, yeah, big numbers, big stats. We're gonna take some time here before we get those going, but for them, this is the lead that they need. And I'll tell you what, I was on Reddit earlier today. Folks and the fans were saying,
No surprise.
this is the player's day to lose, right? I mean, you know how we talk about end zone, this is your ring to lose. This is their Pro League spot to lose. This is a team who has dominantly shown in the last 2 PSQs that they can stand among the rest, and they have the history to boot here. They were but 1 game away in PS2 from being in Pro League, and now with this win on their belt, they're in a good chance to do it here with these last 2 games. We just need to see them keep consistent.
Yeah, and I mean, consistency is one thing, but if you've already been placing so well in other preseason qualifiers, you're on the cusp of just getting that auto qual win spot, which would then even furthermore open up the door on the point standings as they are, because they're currently sitting in 4th. And everyone ahead of them isn't even in the finals lobby. So whether you lock it up via points or you lock it up via auto qual, it's going to change the... Yeah, Zephyr, that is well earned. Look at that.
It's not perfect, though. It is a situation that still leaves me scared for the fate of the players here. 14 above 2nd, 15 above 3rd are numbers that force Deathwish and Postmantrix to absolutely show out in these next 2 games. But it is still a gap, the first major gap that we have truly seen in today's match day.
And it all started with Postman Tricks only getting 1 point that game. With so many teams towards the end of that match in World's Edge, I think 17, like the second to last ring. It's kind of wild, right? So with them only getting 1 point, players put up a, I believe, 24-point game. They were sitting at 30.
That is insane. And we talked about that before we got into this match. How
Yeah.
teams can accumulate, how teams can put up the points in just one game alone to now put them above the rest.
Well, let's cut to a quick break because we only have 2 more maps to go. And you know what? It's all going down to the line. Welcome back to the Apex Legends Global Series preseason qualifier. We have 2 more matches on World's Edge before we send yet another team over to that Emea Pro League regular season. That will be just after the holidays. I'm Tiffany, that's Zephyr, and well, we've seen a lot of things happen, and that points disparity is finally starting to be capitalized on.
It's a big lead in the hands of players no other than them. 14 above the likes of Deathwish. New names to be had with Postman and Gem alongside them. About now 20 behind as we talk about fourth here. It's still 2 games though on the board. Before we even get into our penultimate, you can still rest easy knowing that you have at least 1 or 2 good games left in the tank to potentially contest upon the lead that the players are providing.
And it's a big lead, but it's not unmanageable, right? Deathwish still only 14 points behind them, and with Postman Tricks having a 1-point game, now they can say, you know what, we've won a game, but all they have to do is win 2, right? Players, they've won 2 out of our 4 games that we've seen thus far, and that has really provided to that points disparity that they were able to put between them and Deathwish, which would have only been 4 points the prior match. So with that big win, hey, they just got to reign consistent on the final 2 maps of the day. Character select under the horizon, but a lot of the same that we've been witnessing with our legend compositions today. And honestly, Emea Zephyr, I've only seen the most revenants over here.
It has been more dominantly a variety region, especially in the past as well. Always happy to cook things up in comparison to the more steadfast and similar compositions that we see from places like North America. I can't tell you if that makes them more successful or not. All I can tell you is that is what it is.
This makes for some differential things to watch here and a little bit of cheer. I smile every time I see a Revenant hopping to and from a fight.
After that rev mode, I do not. I am
You're
sick of
like,
seeing
I'm
Revenant.
good.
After I was about to say after what is man, I'm dropping the ball on the name of the event, but I'll tell you what, after dealing with Revenant for the last 2 months, it has been probably the last fill of Revenant I need. Like when are we gonna get our like fuse event? Give me a fuse event.
Oh, jeez.
I
Oh,
don't know,
jeez.
give me a
Use
Vantage
event.
event. Show
Dude,
me
I'm just gonna get
Vantage.
knuckle clustered for days, and I just don't know if I have the mental capacity to be able to withstand that. But as we get a good look at where our zone is pulling with a rather nice flight path, completely splitting the map in half, Death Wish holding out in staging 3 big men over at Lava and
Oh.
Mirage will have a very fair pull towards them. And I did ask for a thermal station zone. This is close enough, Zephyr.
Close, but it definitely can bide its way over towards staging, playing up towards that Geyser Village and Mirage Etoile that we know and love here. Still does have the opportunity to play back towards the Southern Chokes, but we'll have to wait and see. For teams like Players, though, and Red Dragon, Gem, and more, these are heavy rotations that lie ahead here if you're looking to keep yourself not only competitive, but now in the position to surpass or beat the likes of teams.
Well, even Players, right? Yeah, they're going to have a little jump tower over there that should assist in a rotation for them. But when you've got some really large names under the horizon with Postman Tricks operating in Lava Siphon, that could put a thorn in the side for a lot of teams, specifically coming from that eastern side. But for the teams that we do get to look into, Players kind of over here at Bacala, we need just to stay alive and get, at least 8 to 10 points to these last 2 games for me to feel relatively comfortable.
Yeah, it's an exchange that you have to make, but it's one that I come at you with the caveat knowing that players aren't going to be walking out of this game with 0 points. It would be
Exactly. Well,
absurd, right? And so already right now at a minor advantage, seeing that bar continue to raise as we work through our penultimate game makes it incredibly difficult for the matches that exist in further when we start talking about game 6.
well, game 6 isn't here yet, and hopefully players don't drop a 0. But for Gem, hitting a nice little rotation here, moving on over just on the outskirts, kind of surpassing Lava Siphon, maybe heading Harvester a different location. And that's because Balclaw's kind of on the tail of them, and we knew Postman Tricks landed Lava Siphon, so we didn't really want to run into them. But for McDudes, we're looking to get just a little bit closer to kind of the houses on the outskirts of Thermal. Not a bad location for them to kind of set up residence in, considering we don't know if it will commit to the Mirage side, the staging side, or just out here on Thermal. McDude?
He's alt tabbed. He is alt tabbed. If you see the instance where you see the I guess utility item come out there, right? Moby. There's no reason to have a Moby out, but I know what button that is on the keyboard.
Alt?
My boy's either checking out his music, he's either looking at Battlefy, counting the points that they need, or something else here.
Hopefully it's Battlefy. Hopefully Battlefy.
I hope it's not. I want it to be something sillier.
It's a little random. Maybe he's catching up on some JJK episodes because I still need to do that. And I've been played spoiler on social media way too many times, and I just scroll past. I'm like, do not show me anything to do with Nanami. Like, I can't.
Well, I can't promise you as much excitement as JJK, but 3 Dragons do live up to a little bit of the hype here. We'll see if they can make a quick hit, maybe a black flash over on the other side as they're, a bit of a distance away. It is a hard run.
Like, everything I do when it comes to Apex just reminds me of books. We talked about dragons, 3 dragons, red dragon, all the dragons. Well, I read Fourth Wing and Iron Flame so quick, and it's such a good read, but also such a good read on Postman Tricks here for just pushing that team ever so further away from them in Lava Siphon. Trix here needs to navigate the energy barricade because you don't really want to fall into that. And, oh, Drain Gang finishing up Septic over here.
Yeah, I mean, that is as perfect as it gets. The Drain Gang putting it out to work with the Plumbin in the Septic team, and they'll find their way into the vault as well. Actually, very nicely as a pseudo secondary prize alongside their hard work as the blue collars that we know. For the likes of Three Dragons, still chasing. You would think Dragons would be a little bit faster, but hey, 30-30 from this distance is enough for a crack, and there we go. Enough for a knock on the likes of Heck.
I do love the Three Dragons, and now when I think of them, because I've already talked about Fourth Wing, it's just Scale, Tarn, and Andarna. Those are the Three Dragons, and I will continuously make book references here in Emea, because that's just the way you gotta do it, right? Like, you just have to. And if you haven't read Fourth Wing, take some time away from Apex and go play it, but only after this broadcast.
After this inevitable KP there, Atnum, so sad to see that knock, especially after the history that this fella has had this preseason qualifiers, after being on Stay Healthy in week 1, getting wiped and eliminated from that roster, now a part of Zuni and Bardo. Huge history alongside Pro League, alongside Echo Esports and Pro League Gaming, or Akmine Got. Atnum joins alongside them, and they just, as much as they are steeped with history, have not had a good showing.
That's so tough too, especially with a good chunk of experience. But Drain Gang post reset after taking out Septic, already turning their attention towards Wanted, picking up a beautiful knock thanks to that Hemlock from a good mid range, and with 7 on the horizon, able to utilize her package, such as the Grav Lift, to try and cover the distance. But we don't fully commit, and they're expending the energy barricade that just barely missed 7.
Sadly, it's a little bit too far forward there, and as a result, Drain Gang is able to eclipse this position and start to push into countdown main here. As a result, a couple ordinances will slow them down, but they're still finding the good damage that should provide access to this fight. I like this from Ezzy, starting to look over on the side. One good smoke and a Digi down would be wins, but it needs to happen quicker. Already covered on the angle.
Ezzy expending the Bangalore smoke, does have one to boot to help with the climb up. There's no way they let Ezzy climb up that 7, grabs yet another knock and a good chunk of damage down. They're retreating inside. We've seen this before, and it usually ends up with some piercing spikes all over the place, but now the hunt is out and Drain Gang are just looking for their prey.
This has got to be held carefully too, though. Drain Gang are not alone in this further push here. It's a big knock on the Momet, but behind them, there is another roster from the other side. There it is, from Three Dragons getting involved. We talked about them a little bit earlier on as they provided angles against Hectic. Now hearing the shots in countdown prior, they will send for both.
And this is a big engagement over here as well with Postman, Trix, and Rats. They've already got Mania exceptionally low, but Trix finds yet a knock alongside. They just need to make sure we can profit off this. The bow check in hand. It's only a head to see. We would hope it would connect. It doesn't necessarily, and they look to be repositioning and kind of grouping up alongside and focusing over here with the Revenant, forced to use the shadows. It's not worth dropping down. Keeping the high ground will be of utmost importance.
It's a great defense from the likes of Postman Trix that outlasts the utility of the Rats here. So now in a better position to find their take up against them. Things like that Dark Veil are available, but most notably, this is a fight that takes place so far and out from the edge that we are curious about their further claims and stake towards the land ahead. Postman Trix need to have a phenomenal in the lead coming out of Game 3, but lose that from the players now 14 there behind, and need to make reclaims here. For now, though, we'll look towards Forbidden. They just wiped the boys, and Myth want to cut of the action.
Myth Esports definitely need to make that happen. I definitely just saw a knock onto one member of players in the feed as well, so could be a little interesting here as players are still trying to hit that rotation out on the Harvester side, but knowing that Rats and Postman Trix were just there, it could be a little tough for them.
Surprisingly, nope. Heckish push here on to Forbidden. Finally, Myth are inside, and they've kind of sniffed out that there is this last remaining building, this last spot that they opted to hide, and it's And it's a really quick pickup. Nice knocks to follow through there. If you put yourself into a corner, you've got to expect the corner of a result there. Hornets out. Radiant transfer. And for Myth Esports, this is probably the easiest 3v3 they've had to take all day.
What in the world? Yeah, honestly, I wouldn't have expected that out of Forbidden. I'd be curious to hear like what those calls looked like.
Yeah.
Because they're just funneled out of that room with no real plan, and that's how you kind of run the risk. If you're gonna essentially kind of hold up in a building and maybe rat on someone that's approaching, there's so many bloodhounds and other ways to get information in the lobby, but bow check. McGee over here at the hands of Trix. Finding one on Reaper. We find another?
Well, I mean, they found
Maybe.
one, they find two. It's initial
Maybe.
cracks from Trix, potentially more on an edge, but most notably, it is a provided rotation that they're going to have to work with, even if it is out in zone here. Postman Trix, trying to see if they can maybe get some better angles, but ultimately, that distance is starting to be a little bit too difficult to cover.
All right, Red Dragon, let's see what we've got here. You don't have the high ground, and trying to approach this from several different areas. You've got the Rolling Thunder coming out. We've already seen a bunch of utility be expended. You're just trying to get inside, but the moment you pop the shield pad, it gets immediately ripped from you, and that is just the way this team is maneuvering against them.
It is perfect coverage on the reclaim there, and for 3 Dragons, they go out easily at the hands of Red Dragon. A quick pickup over on the train side, even after what was some early damage sustained. But I like this. We get to pull back. We get to look deeply into our zone here, and it is the one that works its way more dominantly towards the choke. Surprisingly, it's 3 big men who are very clearly in control here. You can even see them there in our feed with the Watson fences laid out. The real question, though, remains is, as good as that position is for the endgame, can they manage to hold it with all those teams looking to rotate in from the north?
Well, it's tough, right? McDudes have been in their building outside of Thermal since they took up residence early in game, alt-tabbing out, checking to make sure they're doing what they're doing. But Rats throw out the energy barricade and start vying for their position in zone. You saw the ticks of damage. They've got a lot of shield cracks, so this should be a relatively easy engagement for them. But for this going up against Postman Trix, they do not need to fall this early on, and Postkill has already been thirsted.
This is big revenge in many ways for the Rats after the horrors of some of the early games, especially on Stormpoint. For them, we made a lot of questions regarding their ability to fight things out, and this is the first time that we have seen this composition truly work. And I won't even say this composition. This composition isn't what's doing them any favors. The Rats themselves have just begun to achieve.
Well, Gem, still alive and well. We need to fight through the choke point that 3 big men have been holding. But it's only a matter of time that they can live here before the pool comes in. And with the Watson fences really outlining as much space as they can possibly hold over here, it's still tough. Still tough knowing that all of these teams elected to say, I'm going staging, or this is potentially going Mirage, and now we have to push through the choke point of the 3 big men.
We'll see if they can keep their coverage here. Big question, though, still remains is, even before we get to the 3 big men, there's so many teams out in this village contesting for early space in what was supposedly a staging pool that is no longer as set ahead. Those are fights that are going to need to take place, whether it be in the chokes or just outside right now in these next 30 seconds before we see these pushes claims. And you can see that from Red Dragon already making knocks, making drops here against Deathwish.
And they really needed to do that. Coming into this match, they were just, outside the top 5. They were tied actually in 5th with 31 points, knowing that there is 23 points separating them from the top of the leaderboard, and you've got at least 4 KP thus far. It's really going to be the deciding factor on their performance in the 5th match, and they've got to get through this engagement here at Dorito.
For Red Dragon, it is nice knocks, but it might be, something that they have to walk away from. A late evac is incredibly risky, but with time on the clock, that's supposed 42 seconds to get the job done, You hope that you get across there. Prestis goes down though, and now with Plushka and Go, the last two to try and eat this out from below. Deathwish are very easily going to pick you up and catch you out. Meanwhile, Made in Heaven here with nice drops. Fleshbound, Shades out there. Big wipes on, even with the Black Hole pulling Remix away.
Rolling Teams has fallen, and I'd imagine Red Dragon would be short to follow them, and they are Made in Heaven able to defend their position. So you turn your tides towards the others as everyone is forced into the choke point. Deathwish falls, and G-Dolphin last standing yet again for Need More Bullets with really no space to go. He has the inkling that a reset is happening back here, dives into the ring, is able to get a knock onto Big Man 3. Can we find number 2? No, we found 1, so we just need the last one down and out.
Behind the Dark Veil will come a peek here, but Dolphin takes advantage of these boxes to find a quick shield swap, but is still picked out nonetheless by a final melee. The real question is, does Gem get involved? They have the time, they have the space, and with that launch of an assault, there's no hope for these big men.
There's no hope as they fall with 6 squads remaining. So many teams were up and at them, but this pull was so horrendous for a lot of our squads here today. And well, Gem, they've got a player advantage with 3 members still up. And you look at it, 18 players in the lobby. Well, everyone's got their full squad.
This is good for Gem, but they've got to be a little bit more careful than that. Already at an advantage with that initial knock. I'd like to see them close this gap, accumulate further success against Bacalao before they work their way in the zone. Heck, they don't have a choice. They need to here if they want to accumulate the space that counts. But we look towards the remnants of our lobby. The Rats are still in it, and they're still finding knocks here in this building. Players, though, Bacalao over on the side, punishing as Mania sticks for that Radiant transfer.
Maybe Rats just really needed to kick things off on World's Edge. Lackluster performances against Stormpoint quickly turned around with a 2nd place and 5 eliminations in Map 4. And they've already made it almost to the top 5 here in Map 5. So things are turning around. They're looking straight at the rotation, preemptively taking down damage. Mania here expending the energy barricade to line it up against the Dark Veil as they turn their attention towards McDudes.
This is great coverage on the rotation out there. They do lose out on Sorbin, but still pick up a response. The reason we don't see Bacalao is because the defense was necessary, but this is what I was waiting for all along. Players were over on the side, players were behind this building, and players will be the team to take advantage. Mania is allowed to rotate across this for free, finally is punished, thank the Lord.
This is tough. Look at that setup over there with all of the Watson fences along, and that's going to be Bacalao. We do have at least 1 member still kind of making their way. Players, though, only a duo and went up against 2 trios. The question is, who is going to make the first move? It looks like Made in Heaven turning their sides on 2 players.
It's great control over here from the edge. And players, though, have survived to 3rd, which is important in terms of the overall standings. That's massive placement along the KP that will keep them competitive here. But for Made in Heaven and Bacalao, this is a return to form that we have not seen all day.
Cinetic here still putting the pressure on 2 players, but Bacalao, this is a good game for them, knowing that they only had 8 points coming into this lobby, and Made in Heaven as well. You have to think about where they're going to be making their moves from in 10th place with 18 points. It makes the most sense for them to really shoot up the leaderboard here after all, but with players reigning so consistent and turning their attention, utilizing the high ground, bouncing between, kind of putting pressure on players and Bacalao, it makes sense, right? You want to push the other 2 into fighting.
This is a really good height, but it is inevitably forced out here. Vast dropped low, and it's going to push the remnants of Made in Heaven into players no matter what here. If this isn't the cleanest take from them, it all but secures Bacalao in their success here. But holding on the fence line, playing this low. Cinetic with a very nice drop as players will be eliminated, and Made in Heaven do it with full health remaining.
He played that so incredibly conservative, and just as they survive with all health remaining. Cinetic goes down, and Bacalao full sends towards Made in Heaven, and a glorious Watson play. When you get tripped up in the fences, well, that's how you turn the tide around, and Made in Heaven are your winners of map number 5.
That's insane. In the face of a Kraber knock, down to just 2 players remaining, Made in Heaven pull it off in a 2v3 scenario, even as you said it yourself, taking a full Watson fence to the face to pull that one in the end there. It's a huge return, and you got to give credit where it's due, not just in the exchange of that fight being the clutch factor, but the fact that leading into it, they defeat in a 2v3 one of the best rosters in this lobby in such a clean fashion that it leaves them the opportunity to do that. Had they not been at full health, had they not taken that fight as cleanly as paced as they did, that would have been it. It would have been a free Bacalao win, and even granted a nice easy KP, they still lose.
Yeah, it was pretty wild, I'm not gonna lie. Let's go ahead and pull up the standings and see just how that map 5. What did it do? We knew the players went the distance. Well, they got 64 points, so a 10-point game for players. In Death Wish, only 3 points for them. But Made in Heaven, that's the biggest differential here. They went from 10th place to 3rd.
This is a big claim for them in a time that they needed it most, but is it enough? Players off of a 3rd place finish set themselves up with 64 points, 21 ahead of Deathwish, 22 ahead of Made in Heaven. And I'll tell you what, for both of these rosters, alongside Postman, Trix, and Gem, getting that 24-point win is possible. To even out the score, you're going to have to compete against the likes of players who are very easily going to be putting that even further. We might already be looking at our Pro League roster.
This very well could be, but I guess only time will tell. They've had 2 wins thus far, but let's cut to a quick break before we come back to our final match of the Emea preseason qualifier week 3. It is time for the final match of Week 3 ALGS preseason qualifiers for the Emea region. And Zephyr, honestly, at this point, It's looking a lot like players to me.
It's going to be a tall order here for any one of our competing teams to surpass the massive lead that players have put up in our last 5 games. Let's take a look at the math that sets itself up here at 64 points. The next close being that of Deathwish at 21 is doable, but we both know that's not the number that truly remains after players start rolling.
It is doable, 100%, but it would take a monumental effort out of the entire lobby and for players to fall early on. And with Postman Tricks coming in and having a 1-point game and then falling relatively early in map number 5, they have an even harder journey here in map 6 alongside Gem with a 24-point differential just to tie up players. And, you know, players, they've already accumulated a good chunk of points, but it would be really nice for them to just hit that auto qual and then be like, okay, good, we don't even have to play week 4.
And it also, this is a big thing for a lot of these rosters who have seen players show up consistently. That subtracts one major team that has existed here within all of our PLQs. That's your chance now, knowing you have the points, that you're that much closer to being secure.
And that is the goal. That is the goal, right, Zephyr? They could be so much closer. It opens the door for who can qualify via the points. But for them, you have to think about the teams that aren't here. Maybe they qualify and get into the finals and can actually help out towards the end. But now, I am so nervous for the final map of the day. Can Made in Heaven, Postman Tricks, Gem, and even Deathwish make a play for that top spot? Or will players just be insanely consistent yet again?
We'll see. It is potentially already the superior victory lap for the likes of players, and especially after last week, you cannot hand it potentially to anyone else here. Still though, I mean, it has been an incredible PSQ to watch in terms of the competitive nature and the fact that so many of these new faces have shown up and shown out in their first iteration. I'm looking at Gem, Postman Tricks here. I mean, this is their first time, I won't say in competitive Apex because it's far from that, but
True.
their first time showing up this season, and they show that going into PSQ4, even if everyone knows it's Players' Day, it is going to be incredibly hard fought.
Yeah, I mean, look, they've already won 2 maps. One was a 15 elimination game, the other being a 12 elimination win. I mean, that's just crazy at this point. That just shows, you know, what, we're here. We just want to get this done. We want to secure our spot in Pro League because that's what all of our teams are here vying for. And players have been so close multiple times. And now we're just like, fine, we're going to make this happen. But for Postman Tricks, over here, in this looks to be not good contest, but they need it. They need to get the 3 KP because this is the monumental game they needed. Post kill is incredibly low.
This is a shame for Postman Tricks with a hefty, huge start in the first of Storm Point. Up against players, they're looking worse for wear here. To send them out here would be huge, though. To send players out in 20th, walk away with that KP, that could be the driving force that they need. This is not the roster, not today, to take it toe-to-toe.
Definitely not. And as players seem to inch ever so closely, vying through the piercing spikes, just trying to get closer. 40 bullets in the L-Star, and you know every bit of that can just do so much damage. Lyco able to do a lot, but they will both fall in. So Sister last standing because MG Clutch went big with the longbow off rip.
Shield swap available here over on the edge. Bloodhound's got to be incredibly careful how they approach the edge of this door. Nice take off of the piercing spikes. It is a black hole in response, and they're both going to see if they can maybe stick for an exchange, and instead, it's players out in 20th. Postman Tricks pull this one off, but Myth is here to potentially capitalize to be that third party.
That is going to be massive. We were just hyping up players saying, you know, they could potentially auto-qual here, but they go out and the closest team behind them needs, what was it, 21 points, Zephyr?
Yeah, 21 points here for the likes, I believe, of Deathwish off of that last game. Past that, 22 for Made in Heaven, 24 for Postman Tricks here. This is that final last revive onto post kill that they are sadly not going to be able to stick out here, as Myth had come in too quickly. As a result, that is currently +1, I believe, on the board for players. So everything kind of accumulates by, I believe, one additional number. But even for Postman Tricks, still stuck in this building, they'll find major cracks and will be eliminated. One of the best rosters in the claim for fame here isn't able to survive.
Oh my gosh. So now you look to the likes of Deathwish and Gem to potentially make this happen. And we're going to the northeastern side. Look at Need More Bullets, Drain Gang, Red Dragon. They're already looking for a spot. Rats even so as well. But for the boys, we're kind of hitting that rotational ability. Radiant Transfer coming through does help just a little bit, and they are able to stick the res. McDude's eliminated.
This is scary. The height, the pacing of this lobby has gotten so aggressive here. Now we'll start to set this up, though. The players, we'll say they're at 65, right? 25 is that number to equalize. 26 seems to be the happy confirmation of your place in Pro League for teams like Gem, Made in Heaven, and Deathwish here. What that means is if you're not walking out of this game with a win, first off, right? That is the easiest place for you to find a majority of your placement necessary. But on top of that, you need to be wiping at least 5 total squads here. Almost a third of the remnant of this lobby if you want a chance at Pro League. It is still ever oh so capable here.
It is, but it is going to take everything from Deathwish, from Gem, to try and even make that happen. But with 17 squads remaining, Need More Bullets are trying to find just a good chunk of eliminations. They came into this map in 9th place with 27 points, and for them at this point, it's how many points can they accumulate here?
This is a shame, too, with the aggression of this lobby. It's going to get harder and harder to find those points. Need More Bullets make short work of this exchange over in Survey Camp, and they take us down to our top 16 remaining.
As we see the reset coming in from Red Dragon, gotta turn your tides on the other teams that are nearby. Similarly so, could look to be Deathwish, could also be other teams making their way up towards Survey and Climatizer as Drain Gang gets found out and eliminated.
This is the first time that we've actually now gotten to see the likes of our top squads on the board here. Most of the teams that have picked up KP, like Red Dragon, aren't in the position to win it out today. The likes of Deathwish here, though, right alongside Hectic. This is the first fight that they need to find here if we're talking about a huge potential win. Granted, playing this safe, playing this careful to potentially win it, you got to do both. You got to find the KP to usurp the amount of points, but you've also got to win it on the day, and you've got to play around that, especially around a comp that builds in Watson.
Well, it's tough, right? They've got this building here, and there was a team that just essentially zipped up onto them from Epicenter and immediately went back. That would have been a good open way to get some eliminations, and I think they've sensed another team that are making their way out of Survey Camp, and with Danny having the high ground and initially getting some good damage onto one member, this will allow him to be like, hey, by the way, here's 3 over here. Do we leave this building? Because if we leave this building, the chance that it's going to happen, the team from Epicenter is going to roll right up into it.
Red Dragon here continuing to accumulate points in what feels like one of their best performances on the day of. The big men, as great as the name is, are out for the very final time and potentially the last time we see them in the overall PSQs. 14 squads on the board here, and another pushover on the side that Red Dragon might have to contest against.
So you see the rest of them, a little res coming off here at Epicenter as well. But for Made in Heaven, the boys, Forbidden Myth, they will have the longest rotation as they are the further southern teams. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get to Fragment and they're still running into each other, but they'll come in fully loaded from all of the crafting that they've been able to do. Septic and Wanted will lightly run into everyone on that northern side, but Red Dragon holding where the rings kind of overlap could mean that rolling teams and Deathwish have a really solid position for the next zone.
I think it's good, and I really like that. But once again, in that context of winning this game out and surpassing 65, Deathwish, I don't think they get into enough excursions for them to have the KP that counts. And Maiden Heaven feels a little too far away now, stuck all the way down by Harvester with probably one of the hardest edge plays they'll ever have to pull off in their life. Gem is contesting in Climatizer. If they lay hard, aggressive stake to the land of that POI, that could be enough. For Forbidden, though, this is tough. Stunted out a couple ordinances. Reiki barely is allowed to survive over on the edge. And here comes the boys, looking to pick up the remnants of damage they didn't even start.
Yeah, but for the boys and all of these teams that we're looking at, it's just to move up the leaderboard and get those preseason qualifier points that are outside of that auto qual spot. That will make the biggest difference for them. But for Myth Esports in 14th place in the final match here on Geyser, just cleaning, it's Red Dragon that's finding a threshold of eliminations in the feed.
Again, against Wanted, who took that space over on the western side. They are highly dominant. For Myth, though, able to find good returns here. The boys push out Forbidden and now take full space. This could still be a direct 3v3, and Myth are looking better in terms of the overall economy. Rolling Thunder down with a nice digital threat in play from Voss there. Track from the sky and just barely miss out on a knock. Instead, it's last stand in return here. A follow-up from the boys up above. A knock on to Voss. It's up to Reaper from behind. Stuck out in the zone, trying to Radiant transfer. Doesn't pull it off, and the boys find 3.
And, putting them at 5 eliminations, your kill leader in the lobby, it's Forbidden, who will look down and extend over to see, hey, can we third party? Can we just go ahead and take them out? They've already found one. They just need a few. I think only one is up left standing.
This is a tough one here. Trying to stick it out with the Thermite early with Zodiac. It's enough, though, just to get the banner. I think that's the most important thing to kind of recognize from this move. Not for the KP, not for the exchange, just to get a coup back, which is more of an advantage these days regarding setting yourself up. We tune into Gem, though. This is a team, like I said many times before, who has the option and potential to win, usurp, and get into Pro League now. Problem is, they need KP, and they need it bad.
They came into this with 40 points, 24 points separating them just from tying players. And they don't really have any KP just yet. So trying to get 13, 14 eliminations plus a win is going to be a very tall order, especially when we've already seen other teams picking up 5 and 6 eliminations on that rotation. Yes, you've got positioning. Yes, kills can come, but not when you need that many.
It's a struggle here as we pull back towards our zone. We'll look at the boys in Forbidden. Out of the edge there. Wanted after their take against Red Dragon. We're able to get a recovery out towards Skyhook. Potentially looking for either a revive or something else just to survive. Survey Camp, though, being the heavy place of play here. Hectic, Maiden Heaven, Septic, and Deathwish. This is going to be a major fall of rosters here, especially with that next round close here. And Deathwish are primed and ready to be tracking that rotation.
They really are. Looking down at Septic, Maiden Heaven. They've done so well throughout, but it's this main building at Climatizer here that Gem is still working through. Radiant transfer does come through, making sure that we are back up to full force here and not having to expend any time on kind of popping those shield cells, but still needing to reposition and fight through reinforced doors.
And that's the consequence of something like that Catalyst being so difficult to assist in the exchange of power and push play. At least for now for Gem. They'll be able to survive, but that's not what I want to see out of that roster. Instead, I want to see a little bit of what I'm getting out of Maiden Heaven. They seem to understand what needs to happen here. Over on the side, big damage down, path dropped. Cinetic looking for more, dropping that Rolling Thunder. I'm going to stick heal in the meanwhile. 2 more KP would put them 2 more points closer. a chance of victory.
The only issue with this vying forward is they're not necessarily keeping an eye on their back, but if they stay healthy on this engagement, should there run the risk of having a third party as they navigate closer to the zone, would be okay. Prax able to get a knock on to Attenum, so you see there are just some teams rather closely. Haunted and Septic still kind of in the distance, but it's Red Dragon who had 39 points coming into this, still holding that northern space. It does pull straight to Climatizers, so they will have to move eventually.
That's 3 KP on the board there for the likes of Made in Heaven. We need to talk about 4 more squads in a win for Made in Heaven. That's the rule of thumb right now. 4 more squads as they will have to take it toe-to-toe, whether it be against the remnants of Wanted, who have pulled themselves back together, or even going against the likes of Deathwish, the next closest here on height. No matter what, the big collapse onto Climatizer is going to see one, if not all of these teams fall as they try to compete for space. Deathwish are starting to look here.
Starting to look, and I sigh because no KP on the board for Dady just yet, but 1,300 damage, and this was your second place team coming into the final match, and with players already gone and out early on, we need Deathwish to be picking up so much KP if they want to unseat players from the top, and the boys here at Epicenter just down on the bottom. We know there's a team up top, and with Deathwish kind of gatekeeping them from the building, what are we gonna do here?
Boys stuck on the inside as Wanted make a heavy rotation out towards the edge. For the boys, this is their return after a day of strife all long. They want to make sure that showing up to all 3 preseason qualifiers is represented by their placement as well here. Though double thermite ticks makes this difficult. And on the other side, looking for the control of this Bangalore. None of these teams, though, prompting for good rotation out of this exchange.
Forbidden has fallen, and Made in Heaven does need to move just ever so forward, knowing how many teams are already in Climatizer, the likes of Rolling Teams, Gem, Balkalal, and Rats even. But Red Dragon will need to make a move on from the outskirts as well. But here goes Deathwish hitting that rotation in, and that's what you were gonna do, expending the energy barricade. Will it do enough? Immediately throwing down the Radiant transfer.
That's it for Cinetic here for Deathwish. They'll continue to push forward and try to find more. Shades is knocked out as Made in Heaven are inevitably eliminated, but from behind, Deathwish might be finding their death themselves here. Unable to pick up Shades, instead they have to turn tail and go for full defense off of the pushes ahead. A bit of a slide down upon the snow with a black hole as well. Not quite the full elimination, but just enough to keep Genos and Daney in control. It's big damage.
Big damage, but we need to find some more. Hectic and 3 dragons will fall. 8 squads remaining, but even with 2 eliminations for Deathwish, you take a win with 2, you get 14 points. That's not going to put you past the threshold that players has set for themselves, so let's see how that will go in a 2v2 against Wanted. We still have to make our move and check out the pull. It does pull outside of Climatizer, and Red Dragon are able to play the space on the back end.
It's so good for Red Dragon, even if they're not in the potential place to win it out today. This is going to be a huge resurgence for them on the points standing. Still though, Gem alive, Deathwish alive. Deathwish is officially down to a duo, and I don't think a Moby is in their sights just yet. Granted, still very, very available for them. Notably, they still need to wipe out 4 squads. Gem need to wipe out 5. The respawn is coming through, and this will give them their chance. But this push forward, it needs not only be represented by their survivable, but they also need to be finding the KP to boot as they make this exchange.
Well, Rats are taking out more teams, and Deathwish get their 3rd back, looting up quickly, and it's Red Dragon that are keeping an eye on the teams just in front of them over by Donut, and they've got a lot of space, and being able to like kind of keep an apprised of where everyone is moving. Look at the eliminations. I'm talking, we have 4 eliminations, 5 assists, so a total of 9 from Red Dragon. They came into this match with 39 points. So that's a tall order if you want to unseat players, but you do have 6 other teams in the lobby and you're almost on double-digit eliminations. You are poised to take, well, that's 12 placement points
Huh.
plus 9, 21 at least where you stand if you want.
I wasn't even counting Red Dragon in this at this point. It's 65 total. They need to eclipse an insane, I mean, what is that, 27 points? 12 on the board from their win on top of a further alongside that 15 KP. It's actually more doable than we think at this point, given their current setup for KP. Wiping out the rosters on the interior of their rotation from Climatizer might be enough for a Red Dragon win.
We need at least 26. At least 26. And I don't even know if that will be actually it. That's assuming that players got 1 point, right? And puts them to 65. So 26 would tie it, and Red Dragon would essentially only have 1 win. So they would lose to the tiebreaker because players would have 2.
Well, either way, you can tell they're trying to set themselves up for greatness on the outskirts. It's a perfect pull here, but does it come with the numbers they need? And that's not even to say the fact that Gem and Maiden Heaven are still playing this one out under much of the same mindset regarding their success and setup for KP. And granted, they have a much easier time doing so, needing that they, well, need less here.
Do have the Rolling Thunder to be accessible for Red Dragon. Whether or not they just expended it there is to be said, but we have to keep our eyes on. You've got Rats on the stairs. They'll have to push through Climatizer as well, but setting the stage for our teams that must move will be Death Wish. A good smoke and utilization. Double R9 for some quick damage, but trying to stay under the stairs and underneath the team above them.
Final round close as they keep themselves alive here. Getting involved, we'll see the starting end of Gem as Sir is the first to fall. Is Desu, I believe, the next cracked and utilized there. This is KP, the Death Wish, and Red Dragon are losing out on as Billy is just barely keeping themselves alive before inevitably being picked off by the likes of Shades here. That's 1 more additional KP. They need to look for an exchange against Red Dragon here. Big cracks.
Ooh, big cracks, but Death Wish, I don't know if they will be able to get enough eliminations, even with a win, to unseat players, but anything can happen. Red Dragon still full up as well, so curious to see if they're able to grab some more eliminations from the chaos that is ensuing with 5 squads remaining. 1 member of Red Dragon does fall. The trade comes through, and Daney just gets outnumbered, and Death Wish will fall to the hands of Red Dragon.
Red Dragon are now a duo, though. To find a win without the numbers, with Bacalao down, is a huge difficulty. Plushka, though, finds 3!
Can they do it? Can they do it? Red Dragon with just go left standing, 30-30 going out. Rats do win this, which take the coveted placement points that Red Dragon would have needed.
A massive congratulations to Rats in the end. It has been a long win, though, for them. Even if we weren't discussing the necessary or the potential of them going into Pro League, a win like that will put them the highest, the best that they have done in the entire preseason qualifiers this entire season, which is a big improvement because I believe, I'm going to do my note checky, 19th in PSQ1, 11th in PSQ2, and now somewhere around a top 5. But that's not what we should be focusing on here. Red Dragon have come oh so close. They lose out on the necessary 3 placement points for first place, but they had a lot, and I mean a lot of KP come through in that game.
I mean, they did. When we were looking at them, when that final ring started to close, they were sitting at least on 9. Now, granted, maybe they don't get the 3 placement points they needed, but did they get enough eliminations? They were picking and prodding at just a couple of the teams that were there, and the question is it enough, right? I mean, Rats do take map number 6. They're clearly performing exponentially well on World's Edge. If only they would have had some of the same luck on Stormpoint. Could have been a different story for Rats, but you're right. The question is, did Red Dragon do enough?
I'll tell you what. The information has been provided. I'm opening up my little envelope here and taking out the invitation to Pro League. After a day hard fought with some of the best in the PSQ, some of the highest competition that we've ever seen. It's none other than the players on their way forward.
Holy, players did it, Zephyr. If you go out early in map number 6 and you just have to sit there and watch as the entire lobby plays out, everyone, you're like, okay, well, can Deathwish do it? Well, Deathwish aren't really being a super aggressive here. They're playing more placement. Okay, well, then Red Dragon goes on crazy and performs a sneaky operation to try and unseat players. Well, can we bring up the standings? Because we've got to see just how close it was. Or did players hold on by a mile? No, it was 1 point, Zephyr.
1 point from Red Dragon would have tied had they won. Had they won that game, that would have been it. We would have been singing the praises of 3 very different men on their way to Emea Pro League. The players, they do it in 5 games. They make a heavy-handed stake here in their future for split 1 of year 4, and they do it by 1 point. That is... My hands are actually shaking right now. I want folks at home to know that. That is as close as it gets.
Well, to be fair, players actually did it in 4 games. Their map number 1 was also a 0-point game, joined in with the 6. So I'm not trying to, like,
No, that's fair. That's fair.
Technically 4. 2 of them wins with double-digit eliminations. Map number, 5 was a 3rd place with 3. So pretty exponentially well done. Now, granted, Red Dragon were very consistent. They started out really strong in map number 1 and returned to form in map number 2, but by just not winning map 6, they lost it to Rats. That changed the tide, and hopefully Red Dragon can come back stronger on the final week of preseason qualifiers.
I'll tell you what, it's big numbers up on the board for Red Dragon nonetheless. This is their 3rd PSQ, and I'm going to be shocked if they don't make it to 4. So they're probably in the hands of one of those tickets as well, maybe just not alongside a win currently. Still, a week sets ahead in remain. Big ups for Rats. This is the first time they've made it into the top 5 thus far in PSQs, and it actually makes them a very dangerous foe going into our final week. And of course, alongside that, a huge shout out to Deathwish, Made in Heaven, Postmantrix, and Gem. Their first appearance here in the PSQs as these rosters, and they have come through with an absolute gong upper performance. This is the best I have ever seen a team show up. Not just one. We had 4 separate rosters become incredibly dangerous entities on the day of that were threats for the position of Pro League.
Overall, it was a lobby full of exponential talent. It was so fun to watch, and at the end of the day, well, players just able to edge it out. And we've made a lot of good points here, Zephyr, but let's bring it back to us. Let's talk about this because, yes, it may be done and dusted for Emea in the morning, but we do have North America Week 3 preseason qualifiers that will be in just a few hours over here on Versus GG. So make sure you stay tuned for them. But I've got to hit it with you, Zephyr. Any final thoughts from what we've witnessed here today?
I'll tell you what, I said it last week, but this week proves it even more. These PSQs can continue to show the absolute growth that exists within the competitive Apex scene. The Tier 2 scene, the Pro League caliber, everything is getting better and better as these teams get more practice, know more, and exist within this space. If you're not in Pro League now, this was probably the easiest it's going to get for the future.
I mean, yeah, it is because there's only 1 week left for Emea for the rest of the regions after we see North America tonight. So congratulations to all our players that have played through a multitude of lobbies to get here to the finals, to reign consistent. Shout out to our observers, Versus GG, everyone behind the scene that are putting on these preseason qualifiers for you. But hey, that's all for Emea. So stay tuned, go get a lift in, go walk, do something, and then come back for North America at 9 p.m. Eastern.